Hello friends, we are back with Lord of Shadows. And oh my god, this series, I forgot how giant the books are. So I'm going to jump right into this because this book is even longer than the first one. The final book in this series is nearly 900 pages long. So I will be working on that diligently over summer, but you might need to wait. You might need to wait a little bit. Also, there are some cursed images. I tried to balance out the cursed images and the blessed images that we have, but I need to get this off of my wall immediately. I've been having bad dreams, sleeping with this board in my bedroom. We're diving right in. No prologue, said Cassie Clare. No. Starting with part 1, Dreamland. Kit had only recently found out what a flail was, and now he's staring at a wall covered in them. If you think we are in the weapons room of the Los Angeles Institute for a training session, you would be wrong, because Kit is nothing if not his father's son, rest in peace, Johnny Rook. Kit is here to steal some daggers. He's like, wow, there are a lot of like gold and jewel crusted things that could make a pretty penny at the shadow market. Why don't I put a bunch of daggers into my pants pockets, which I feel like is not. Remember, these are teens. Okay, frontal lobe, nowhere near fully formed. As he is doing this, as he is stuffing his pockets with weapons, a man walks in, and he thought that he woke up early enough that he wouldn't be noticed. However, quote, he'd come to realize during his short time at the Institute that Julian Blackthorne notices everything. But it's not Julian Blackthorne, it's a man that Kit doesn't recognize. And you know that this book is going to be good when it is page 5 and we have a Jace cameo. Yeah, Jace walks in, he introduces himself, he's like, hello, I am Jace Herondale, and Kit just stares at him. To which Jace is like, and you're Christopher Herondale. That's what you were supposed to say, bud. Kit is surprised that he knows. This man knows who he is. He's like, how did you know that? Jace launches into this like long speech about how he just like felt the family resemblance, like how strong blood is, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, also Emma texted me a picture of you. So... Jace tries to give him a pat on the back, and when he does that, all of the daggers fall out of his pockets. And so then he gives Kit another long speech about how like you need to be honorable shadow hunter and how the Herondales are this historic family and blah, blah, blah. And Kit is like, yeah, that's a really cute story, bud, but I'm not going to be a shadow hunter. And Jace is like, well, tough shit, kid, because you are. And he also says, not only are you a shadow hunter, but you're a Herondale. I love his obsession with Herondales. Not only are you part of a stunningly good-looking family, but you're also part of a family that owns a ton of valuable property. So why are you stealing shit? Okay, we are wealthy. And Kit is like, oh, inheritance, you say? Maybe I could stay a little bit longer. When we've got two blonde, sassy Herondales in one house, there's a reason why I still have like 1,600 pages of this series left. But now let's check on the rest of the house. We are with Emma, Mark, Christina, and Julian at the Santa Monica Pier dealing with demon shit. Remember, these are shadow hunters. They don't just have family and relationship drama. They do have to fight demons occasionally. And there is like a giant squid demon that is attacking the pier, and we need to save all of the tourists, okay? So they break into two groups to try and see where they can attack it from. Mark and Christina go off. Julian and Emma are working together because they are Parabatai, and it is awkward to say the least. Remember, we've had the tiniest bit of a time jump, and Mark and Emma are fake dating, or are they? Maybe they're real dating. We don't know, but all we know is that Julian thinks the love of his life is dating his brother. So, and just before they noticed the demon, they were actually at Santa Monica just having fun, and they played some kind of carnival game. Mark won a prize, gave it to Emma, and kissed her on the cheek, and apparently Julian looked like he was about to throw up blood. So, things are not going well, or they're going exactly to plan, according to Emma. In order to get a better vantage point, Julian and Emma decide to get on the Ferris wheel. They are drawing runes on each other, getting ready to fight, and apparently this is the closest Emma has been to Jules in 2 weeks. She felt dizzy from it. a little drunk. And she is apparently sitting on her hands because she aches so much from wanting to just like reach out and touch him. Not good. Quick refresher. Remember, Parvati have done a ceremony in which they are connected, they share power, they share pain. They are allowed to experience every kind of love except for romantic love. And these two have been in love since birth. But Emma, in particular, didn't realize it until afterwards. Julian kind of already knew he had feelings for Emma, but he wanted to keep her close and in the family because she would have been sent away after her parents died. So he went through with the ceremony, and he has never regretted anything more in his life. And after they confessed their love for each other, Emma decided to break Julian's little heart by dating the one person that would completely ruin him, and that is Mark.
Thank you very much.
His older half sibling. Okay? Julian wants this book to become messy immediately. So as they are looking for the demon, they're like sitting in the Ferris wheel. He just suddenly goes, "Just tell me he makes you happy, Emma." And I was like, what? He's like, does Mark make you happy? And before they can even get into it, a giant tentacle comes out of the water. And they spring into action. Specifically Julian. He literally jumps out of the Ferris wheel bucket. And this seems like an insane idea, but it also looks like the squid monster is trying to take down the entire Ferris wheel. So Julian is willing to risk it all. Okay? Hero of our story. We get a long fight scene, which includes like literal acrobatics and Emma swinging a sword into the squid monster's eyeball. But eventually the shadowhunters come out on top and the squid demon dies and its body sinks down into the deep blue sea. But the work is never done. Right after this, they literally get in the car and Diana calls them. Remember their tutor? She calls them and is like, "You guys got to get back to the Institute ASAP because Clary and Jace are here and they have some news." Emma is like, pedal to the metal. Gotta go see my other boyfriend, Jace Herondale. Love of Emma's life, actually. When they get to the Institute, Diego is there. Perfect. Diego, remember the whole reason why Christina moved to LA from Mexico City? Because he broke her heart. And normally Emma is plotting his death, but apparently 2 weeks ago, they also got back together. So Emma has to play nice. And this is why, remember, Mark has a big fat crush on Christina because everyone should, because she's amazing. And he was kind of going to tell her his feelings when he walked into her bedroom and saw her kissing her ex, Diego. So Mark has a broken heart, Emma has a broken heart. They decide to date in order to hurt the other people that they let. Guys. Also in this meeting, up in the rafters of the library, Livy and Ty, the twins, they eavesdrop on everything. So they have found the perfect hiding place. And speaking of Ty, there's no good place to put this, so I just have to mention it. For the past 2 weeks that Kit has been living with them, Ty has been sleeping in front of his door. Like, Kit does not interact with anyone. He just kind of comes and goes from his bedroom to like wherever he can steal weapons. I don't know. But Ty has been sleeping in front of his door. Nobody really knows why, but Emma assumes it's because Kit is unusual and interesting, in the same way that Ty finds small animals interesting. But put a pin in that. Okay, but what are we talking about? We're talking about the squids because apparently ever since all of the stuff that went down in the previous book, remember how there was a portal in the ocean? Yeah, something's up with the ocean man because usually you have demons of all kinds, but water demons, aquatic demons are the rarest of them all. And now LA is dealing with an onslaught of mollusks and squids and octopi and things like that coming out and terrorizing the city. So what's going on? And Magnus is worried because Malcolm Fade, when Emma killed Malcolm Fade and washed him out to sea, Magnus is like, yeah, so sometimes warlocks can make spells that trigger when they die. So this could be linked to that, but there's no way of knowing, and there's no way of turning off the spell without the body. So what are we gonna do? And because of this, the council has decided to send in a ton of the centurions. Remember the graduates of the Scolamonts? They're like warrior scholars. Perfect Diego is one of them. They're gonna come to the Institute to stay and try to figure out what's going on, whether it is finding his body or just like get into the bottom of this. All of these sea creature demons, it's freaking everybody out. Julian does not like this. He has like 50 plus people in my house, he doesn't like strangers in general, but he really doesn't like centurions. And he's sort of like taking a head count. He's like, look at all of us. We've got Clary, we've got Jace, we can call up Isabel and Simon. We've got enough people. We can get to the bottom of this ourselves. We don't need outside help. But apparently, Clary and Jace won't be here for long because they have a top secret assignment. Just kidding, it's not top secret because they tell Mark literally a page later. So where are Clary and Jace going? They are like, listen, we can't tell you much, but we are going to Fairy. Tell us about how the courts are run, anything that can help, you know, like even a map, drop some names, anything that could make our mission easier would really be helpful. And Mark's first question, because Mark is having a really rough time, he still like doesn't really understand humans that can lie. And he's like just hurt with the Christina thing. And he knows that he's kind of lying to Julian, but he doesn't know why. Because Emma told him that it's not about Julian. You know? So he's just really confused and upset and angry, right? And he doesn't have his hot boyfriend anymore. His very first question is like, are you gonna hurt anybody? He's like, I'm not helping with a mission that's gonna cause any harm. I'm sick of this. And Clary is like, no. Like, I wouldn't lie to you, Mark. This is a reconnaissance mission. We are gathering information. This isn't revenge. Like, I promise you, we will not hurt anybody. And they can tell that Mark is still quite cagey. So Clary and Jace kind of share a look. And Clary is like, and Jace is like, so Clary leaves. Clary is like, listen, if you're going to spill the beans about this top secret project that we are not supposed to talk about, I'm not going to I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm going to step out. If Jace tells you anything, make sure you tell them Jace said it, not me. So Clary steps out and Jace is like, okay. Let me tell you the real plan. What is the real plan? Essentially, Sebastian Morgenstern, you remember Clary's evil brother, he apparently left a weapon at one of the courts of Fairy that could, quote, destroy us all Nephilium. So they need to go talk to the Seelie Queen or the Unseelie King or both because the only information they have is weapon and will destroy us all. Jace is like, it could be a book. It could be a teacup. We don't fucking know. So Mark is like, all right, I'll give you a list. I'll give you a list of names, but no harm comes to the fairies. And he's also like, and Jace, like, love you, bud, but I don't think you realize how much fairies hate you. But yeah, give me a pen and paper. Good luck. After that, we get a scene with Diana and Julian. They go up to the attic to go check on Arthur. Remember, Arthur is technically head of the Institute. He is Julian's uncle, but because of things that happened to him in his past, he is not of sound mind. And Malcolm had been making potions for him to make him basically able to function. But obviously Malcolm is dead, so we need to find a new potion maker. Diana's like, listen, Julian, the only place we're gonna find one of those is the shadow market, and shadowhunters aren't really supposed to go there. So she's like, listen, off the record, I am advising you to go to the shadow market, and also I'm advising you to bring Kit, because Kit's dad was Johnny Rook. He was a criminal, but he also was like the know-it-all of the Downworlders. So he had a pretty prominent booth at the shadow market. Kit knows everybody there. He could be our in. So they head there, and Julian is having a really rough time dealing with Kit because he's like, man, I have dealt with sulking teenagers before. Like, he has 4 younger siblings, but in the car, he just keeps looking over at Kit and he's like, damn, there's just like an artistry to his sulking. He really means it, you know?
Oh, so now you're mad?
No, it's
because
just you're
I
being
wanted
ridiculous
to listen to
because you
music.
have a great life.
I'm sorry, I'm not perfect.
But they get to the shadow market, true to his word. Kit talks to the people that he knows, specifically one witch-esque character that he's been friends with for a long time. And she's basically like, honey, I can't help you. Everything that has gone down in the past few years, we're not dealing with shadowhunters. And Kit is like, well, yeah, I had to bring him, the shadow hunter, but you can still talk to me, right? Like, what if you just sold them to me? And his friend is like, no, Kit, you're one of them too. You're not welcome here anymore. And as Kit is trying to absorb this, there's a bit of a hubbub, and this creepy ass dude comes out of nowhere to introduce himself as Barnabas Hale. So he's a warlock, and warlocks are half demon. So even though Magnus and Malcolm look pretty normal, some of them can have more prominent demon features. So yeah, Barnabas is basically like a lizard man, and Julian is like, thank God Ty likes to play with lizards, and like I've had to deal with that shit all the time. because as he's shaking Barnabas's hand, that is like the only thing that keeps him from throwing up. He's just like, whoa. Barnabas is also like, get the fuck out. He's like, how dare you even think you were allowed here after everything that's happened? And he's mainly talking about Malcolm Fade. Like, the Shadowhunters killed another Downworlder, killed another Warlock. And Julian is like, Barnabas, do you know what Malcolm did? And Barnabas is like, honestly, I don't care. Because Malcolm killed Downworlders too, right? He's like, all I see is another Downworlder killed at the hands of the Shadowhunters. And remember, at the end of the last book, Julian made sure that Nightshade, the vampire, was sent to jail and punished for his magical pizza sauce crimes. So another beloved member of the Downworlder community was punished by the Shadowhunters. And also now we don't have vampire pizza anymore. So fuck you, Julian Blackthorn. And then he turns to Kit just to make matters worse. Remember, Kit's 15. He grew up in the Shadow Market. This is as close to family as he's got. And this man is like, Christopher Herondale, you are also not welcome here. Like, take your Shadowhunter shit and get out. Now let's check in on Mark and Emma. They are hanging out in Emma's room. Mark is wearing his new favorite pajamas, which are shamrock bottoms, and then it says, get lucky on the butt. The details that Cassandra Clare adds into her books. Marvelous. And we kind of ended mid-scene with Mark and Emma. Remember, Mark's last words were, why lie? When Emma was like, we need to lie about the fact that we're dating, right? Turns out Mark kissed Emma. He was like, why don't we give this a go? And Emma says, you know what? It wasn't a bad kiss. It just wasn't life-changing and soul-shattering like Julian's kisses are. So, and apparently when Mark pulls away, he's like, why do you taste salty? And then they both realize that Emma is crying. Mark is immediately like, okay, what do I do? Girls crying, not my forte. Emma, are you all right? And Emma basically makes up a story about Cameron Ashdown. Remember her kind of on again, off again ex-boyfriend? She's like, listen, I just had a really messy breakup again with Cameron. I just don't want to put any more pressure on Julian because, you know, he's dealing with so much. I don't want to add to it. And I know that if I lean on him with this, he's really going to take it to heart. So like, if he thinks that I'm happy dating somebody else, he's going to feel a lot better. Don't you think? Like, so can we just pretend so that he doesn't worry about me? And Mark is like, oh my God, yes, anything for Julian. I hate lying, but I'm lying for a good cause, is what he thinks. We know that Emma just wants Julian to stop loving her and give up. But poor Mark, poor innocent Mark, is like, yeah, of course, girl. I got your back. They ended up talking all night. He told her about Fairy. She told him about everything that's happened while he was away. And they're just really good friends. So they've spent like literally every night for the past 2 weeks just hanging out, talking.
Do you ponder existence often?
No, baby.
However, another friend, Emma's girl, Christina, Emma did tell her the truth because Emma's the only one who knows that Julian and Emma slept together. She apparently cried in Christina's arms for several hours, and she also got permission from Julian to share a kind of abbreviated version of Arthur's illness with Christina. So Christina also knows that Julian is basically running the Institute. Okay, so Christina's in the know. Christina is maybe the only person who actually knows everything in this book, okay? But other than Christina, the girl that Emma is closest with is Clary. And before Clary and Jace leave, I think while Jace and Mark are talking, Clary goes to find Emma and is like, girl, can I talk to you privately for a sec? And they head out to the roof. There is a moment where they kind of bond over the heaviness of having had to kill someone. Remember, Clary had to kill her brother and Emma had to kill Malcolm. And they were both, Clary had a more complicated relationship with Sebastian, but Emma, up until like the last week of his life, considered Malcolm a very close friend. And so to kill him, even though she now knows that he killed her parents and everything, that's rough. That's rough. So they really kind of come together on that. But they both agree that like both men were monstrous. And Clary says, when people die, our dreams of what they could be die with them. But Clary is like, let's talk about lighter things. Change topics. You dating anybody? And Emma is like, you couldn't have picked a heavier topic if you tried, girl. Emma is like, yeah, Mark. And Clary's like, I'm sorry, I thought you said Mark? And Emma's like, yeah, why? Why, who'd you think? And Clary's like, no, I guess I always pictured somebody else, but And so Emma is like, okay, romance girl, anything to share with the class? And Clary's like, oh, funny you asked. Jace asked me to marry him. Emma is like, come again? Clary's like, Jace asked me to marry him. And Clary isn't smiling. And Emma is like, oh God. Because remember, she's always said, if Clary and Jace break up, she does not believe in love. So she is like, please don't let my understanding of the world crumble in front of my eyes. Clary, what is going on? And Clary is like, no. It's nothing like that. It's just I need more time. It's not that I need more time to know that I want to marry Jace. Of course I do. But the timing of everything going on right now, something's not right. And that is when she tells Emma that she's been having some freaky ass dreams. And Clary's got weird powers. Remember, she is able to create runes that have never existed. So if she's having freaky dreams, these aren't just normal paranoid people scary dreams. These probably contain a message. And she feels something awful coming. A wall of darkness and blood. A shadow that spreads out over the world and blots everything out. She's like, I don't have specifics, but why the fuck would I get married right now with a wall of darkness and blood coming at me? No. I refuse to be planning a wedding with the apocalypse approaching. She's also like, especially not with the knowledge of... Emma's like, Continue? That I'm going to die, Clary said. Not a long time from now. So, Clary doesn't want to get married because she thinks she's gonna die soon. She's like, if we got married, had this lovely ceremony, we're husband and wife, and then I just died, Jace would lose his mind. Emma is sort of like, I think Jace would lose his mind either way. But she says, I know it sounds ridiculous, it's just how I feel. And Emma is the only person that she has told. Okay, so that's heavy. And she's like, I've just got a huge favor to ask you. Girl, are you ready? Essentially, why Clary has brought Emma to the roof is to get Emma to promise that if I do die, I want you to tell them, Jace and all the others, that I knew I was going to die, and I wasn't scared. And tell Jace this is the only reason I said no to marrying him. The reason she's telling Emma this is she's like, honestly, girl, out of my entire list of friends, you are the only person I know who wouldn't freak the fuck out. Meanwhile, internally, Emma is freaking the fuck out. But Clary is like, I know that you can keep a secret. I know that you deal with dark shit. If I told Simon, oh my God, he wouldn't stop crying for weeks. You are my girl. I know that you'll do this for me. She also says, and I've seen you in my visions, even through the darkness. You're there shining with the Cortana. She says, I know you, girl, and I know you never give up. So hopefully I'll see you on the other side, but likely not. What, Clary? Speaking of Jace, we are back in the car with Julian and Kit, who are driving back from the shadow market. And Kit is sort of like, where do I go now? He's realizing that he's very alone in the world. And he's like, Jace is leaving and I can't go live with him because he's got a hot girlfriend and that would be really weird for me. Julian actually laughs out loud at that. He's like, wow, I guess Herondales really do have a type. He's like, her name is Clary. She's not just a hot girlfriend, okay? She's like one of the most powerful shadow hunters of our time. And besides, you can just stay with us. Like, it's common for you to live with family, so it wouldn't be weird if you lived with Jace, but you're also welcome to stay here. And Kit is like, respectfully, Julian, your family's nuts. You've got an agoraphobic uncle, you've got a weird brother, and immediately Julian is like, Ty isn't weird, take that back. And Kit, absolutely deadpan, is like, I was talking about Mark. And Kit is like, besides, Ty isn't weird, he's just autistic. And Julian panics again, because remember, any kind of otherness in the Shadowhunter world is considered something to be ashamed of. People are put away, like hidden from society, for being dyslexic. So he doesn't really advertise that Ty is autistic, okay? And he also doesn't really understand what that means, because we find out Shadowhunters don't do mundane health stuff. So the Shadowhunters are anti-vaxxers. They're basically like, we have healing runes for everything, and if it's bigger than that, we call a warlock, and if it's bigger than that, we call a silent brother. But other than that, we don't do that kind of thing, you know? And Kit is like, you have got to chill out, man. Kit is literally like, bruh, have you heard of neurobiology? And he's like, let me take it down a level for you. Have you heard of science? But yeah, they don't, antibiotics, nada. Okay? They don't do that kind of thing. So Kit is like, wow, I am 15. I am not equipped to have this conversation with you right now. And I just found out that everyone I know hates me. So I just kind of want to sit in silence in the car. Is that okay with you? And Julian is like, absolutely, bud. Me too. And by the way, they don't hate you. They're just afraid of you. And Kit is like, thank you so much, Julian. Thank you so much. Now let's focus on our girl, Christina, okay? Everybody else has headed to Malcolm's house, or what is left of it, because it blew up. And they are trying to find either a sign of where his body could be or the black book. He had his weird, creepy spell book, and they need to find both of those things in order to stop whatever creepy demon ocean spell is going on, okay? So they are searching through the rubble, trying to find the black book. And Christina and Diego are talking about Jaime, his brother. Yes, they are identified by the same actor. They're supposed to look a lot alike, but slightly dangerous. And so one is smiling because he's perfect, and one is not because he's a serious possible sociopath, okay? That's how we're keeping them apart. So Jaime is Diego's brother, a sore spot in the relationship, because remember, the reason why Christina left Mexico City was because she overheard Diego and Jaime talking about how Jaime wanted to get rid of Christina's mother, who is head of the Institute, and install their family as head of the Institute. And ever since that day, Jaime has run away, has not been in contact. Diego is like, I've reached out to him. I've sent so many letters. I don't know where in the world he is. But he gets called over to look at something else. So Christina is looking alone when she discovers a leather glove. And this shouldn't pop out at her, except for the fact that it has an insignia burnt into it. And it is the image of a golden crown snapped in half. And she immediately calls for Mark. Mark, who appears before she's even finished being like, hey, Mark. He's like, poof, as if he were waiting for her. This is a symbol of the Unseelie court in Fairy. And Christina, her specialty is Fae. So thank God she found it and used her brain. And Mark is like, oh, yeah, only the princes of the Unseelie court have those. And if somebody left one behind, they would only do that intentionally. So that was either a sign of a deal or a promise. We already know that Malcolm was working with one of the Fae from the Wild Hunt, but that fairy wasn't a prince. So who was he working with? And Mark is basically like, oh, Christina, you are just so smart and amazing. And he goes to like tuck a piece of hair behind her ear. And she's like, no, Mark, not in public. But before they can talk about his fake relationship, Emma screams because she found a tentacle, and she hates tentacles, and I'm with you, girl. But we got to get back to stopping the demons at hand. So Mark and Christina, they both know that the fake dating is happening. But remember, Christina knows the real story. Mark knows the fake one. They've never actually talked about it. So, But off we go back to the Institute to study this creepy ass tentacle and hope that there are some answers. But unfortunately for them, they've got to work fast, because as they are driving to the Institute, they realize the tentacle is like disintegrating. It is turning into like sea foam or something like that. They have a meeting in the library, everyone just frantically grabbing books. Turns out Christina, once again, saving the day. It is a particular kind of ocean demon that can only exist for about 2 days on land. So they're trying to figure out, why would a demon come out of the ocean just to crawl up to the ruins of Malcolm Fade's house and die? That's also when Christina is like, hey, just want to bring up another odd thing. And she tells everybody about the fairy glove. But the only thing that this sort of research party brings us is more questions. And before we can get any deeper into it, the doorbell rings. But before we get to the doorbell, we get a cute scene of Ty and Kit in the kitchen. Once again, Kit thought that he was moving around unnoticed. I feel like Kit is not as slick as he thinks he is, because Ty followed him into the kitchen when Kit is like trying to steal cookies from the pantry, and he turns around to see Ty just standing there silently. he throws the Tupperware at him. Yeah, Ty has not spoken to Kit. Granted, he hasn't had much of a chance because Kit has been moving around like a ghost, but Ty has not spoken to Kit basically since he had a knife to his neck in the basement a few weeks ago. But Ty couldn't help but notice that Kit was bleeding because at the shadow market, Kit got so mad about what was happening that he punched something, so his knuckles are kind of bleeding. And while Julian offered to give him a healing rune, Kit said no, but for some reason, he was like, you know what, Ty? Yeah. Fuck it, let's go. He holds out his forearm trustingly, his wrist and blue veins exposed to the boy who held a knife to his throat not that long ago. And Kit can't help but admit that the healing rune is pretty cool. He literally sees his skin knit itself back together and he's like, badass. And they kind of start talking about healing runes and they end up bonding over their mothers because healing runes can't cure cancer. And that is how Ty and the entire Blackthorn family lost their mother, and Kit doesn't know his mother. So they kind of bonded over that loss in their life. And that's when Ty finally asks, he's like, Kit, are you gonna stay? But we never hear Kit's answer because we are interrupted by that same doorbell ringing and Livy runs in and is like, the Centurions are here. Those like 50 warrior scholar people that Julian does not want in his house, they have arrived. Okay? Livy is like, they're having a meeting. We're not allowed. You know what that means.
That my best friend, she a real bad bitch.
And it means that Livy and Ty are going up to their secret hiding place. And Livy is like, are you coming, Kit? And Kit is like, yeah, I am. And Lord help us all. Livy, Ty, and Kit are forming a friendship and the world may not survive. Okay, the Centurions are here. Nobody is happy about it. Christina especially is not happy about it because remember, they just came back from digging through rubble and she is like sweaty and dirty and covered in disintegrating tentacle and everything. She wanted to make a nice impression. Remember, Christina is from a family that is considered to be like shadowhunter royalty. So she has an image to uphold. She's also just like a neat person, but they have to play nice. Diana is trying to like shuffle everybody to like mingle. So she's like, Julian, you go talk to that guy. Christina, you got to go over there. So Christina and Diego are mingling with one of his good friends, Manuel, when she notices that Emma and Julian are sneaking out because Drew ran in and kind of dragged them out. So they are missing. So Christina's not having a good time. Also, immediately all the Centurions have a stick up their ass. Like they think they are such hot shit.
Here comes the 1%. Money. I got money.
They're expecting like a red carpet entrance, like VIP service. And Julian is sort of like, welcome to my house. Make yourself at home, you know? But before Christina can worry too much about why Julian and Emma just left, a random girl just bursts out of the crowd and runs up to Diego, giving him a kiss on the cheek. Perfect Diego turns a kind of watery color as if all the blood drained from his face. And he's like, Zara. And she's like, surprise. Diego's like, wow, I thought you were gonna be in Hungary, not here. And Zara's like, oh yeah, you know, like whatever was going on there, we finished it up pretty quickly. I'm so excited that I get to be here. I missed you so much. And she like puts her arm around him and she turns to Christina and now Mark, who has just appeared out of nowhere. They're both standing there like, and Zara's like, hi, so nice to finally meet you guys. I'm sure you've heard of me. I'm Zara, Diego's fiance. Just in case you're worried, just so that I can ease your mind, the reason why Julian and Emma had to leave is because Drew came to get them because Clary and Jace are trying to make a quiet exit. They're having a little tearful goodbye when Drew runs in again. She's literally got eyes everywhere, this girl. Okay, she's not on the page a whole lot. She's everywhere. Drew is like, Emma, you need to come back to the ballroom because something's really wrong with Tina. Tina is now on the roof. She's relocated. She's not crying. She is terrifyingly stoic about this. And she's actually more pissed that Diego didn't follow her out. Like after Zara was like, I'm the fiance, Christina just bolted and Diego stayed in the ballroom. Diego also got slapped. He got slapped hard by Zara, and Livy, Ty, and Kit, who were watching from above, were like, oh, damn. But Christina is like, if this was just a misunderstanding, a miscommunication, like he would have run after me and explained, but here I am alone on the roof, no explanation. And so as she's just fuming Emma comes up. And Emma is like, girl, whatever you need, like, I'll crash their wedding. I'll jump out of the cake, but not in a sexy way, with grenades. And Christina is like, okay. No, actually, we're not gonna hurt Diego. I shouldn't have trusted him. This is on me. You know, he's let me down before. Why did I want to believe him this time? And Emma is like, girl, you loved him. And when people are in our lives, even if they betray us, we want to believe in them. And that's not a bad thing for us. She says, sometimes when someone's been a part of your life for that long, cutting them out is like cutting the roots out from under a plant. And they kind of bond over the fact that both of them have a lot of deep roots that they need to cut out of their lives.
Lots of trauma. Lots of
Very
trauma.
insecure. Very insecure.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. These girls are so good to each other. They're such good friends. And Emma is like, anyway, fuck them. I'm going to be 18 soon. You promised me that I could come to Mexico with you. We were going to do a whole world tour. I want to see everything. And I want you with me. We're going to have these wild adventures and we're going to forget these stupid boys. And Christina feels a little bit better and makes Emma swear not to lay a hand on Diego. And Emma is like, gotcha, girl. I will kill him with my feet. And they both believe that Zara didn't know. And so we are hoping for maybe a girl power arc. We're going to rise up and take down Perfect Diego. Christina goes to her room, Emma goes to hers. When she opens the door, Mark and Julian are in there sitting on her bed and they immediately jump up and they're like, okay, what's the plan? How are we killing him? These boys are ready to defend Christina's honor, okay? And Emma's like, no, I promised I wouldn't touch Diego. You know, whatever, let's play nice. And Julian says, there are ways you could hurt him without touching him. He said it very low so that only Emma could hear. There was something dark in his voice. Something that made her shiver.
I know, but he's so cute.
And we'll circle back to that. But basically, Julian is like, I don't understand. Even if Zara wasn't going to be there, like, Diego was surrounded by 50 of his closest classmates. Of course, they would know that he was engaged. Like, why did he bother even trying to be with Christina? Like, it's mind-boggling. I'm with you, Julian. I don't understand this. But we've got another crisis on our hands. Livia's like, hey, so Blackthorn headcount. Kit is missing. But luckily, Ty comes in right after and he's like, no, false alarm. He just overheard the fact that we had to like make beds and set up all of the rooms and do chores, and he wants no part in that. So he is intentionally missing. I'm sure he will come back. Let's get to work. And so the Blackthorns go off to set up the 50 guest beds for their shitty housemates, the Centurions. The next morning, Christina is just trying to get down to the kitchen to have breakfast in peace when she runs into Diego. And Diego literally chases her outside, yelling. He's like, let me explain.
Baby, my teeny tiny baby girl.
Why do you always have to flirt with other women?
Do you want to hear his reasoning? This is the boy's explanation, okay? Basically, he broke up with Zara via letter, and apparently she got his letter, which is why she physically came to the Institute to be like, what the fuck? And Christina is like, okay, and so you broke up last night? The slap heard around the world. And Diego is like, well, funny story, I can't break up with her. And Christina is like, you can't break up with her? What do you mean? And he's like, listen, there are things I wish I could tell you, but I can't. And then Zara pops out of nowhere and is like, honey, we've got things to do. Come inside. She literally says, time to help out. Tick, tick. And is like tapping her fake watch. She has this like wacky smile on her face. Weird vibes all around, everybody. Happy to announce. And as we already know, the Centurions are assholes. They are not letting the Blackthorns help. Everyone is like, listen, we'd really like to be a part of it. We know Malcolm. We feel like we have a lot of valuable information. Zara is like, yes, sorry guys. We don't need less experienced people on the case. And she is on Emma's ass because Emma is known in the Shadowhunter world as being very skilled. Like, even before all of this drama happened, she is a really good Shadowhunter, okay? So she asks like a innocuous question. And Zara's like, wow, you'd think one of the best Shadowhunters of our generation would know something like that.
Oh, were you in line? Brianna Wallace, messages please. Thank you. And thank you. Next time, Take a number.
Mean girl shit. Mean girl shit, okay? But she's not just a mean girl. She is a bigot because she then, I don't know how she even gets on all of these subjects, but she hits at all angles. She's basically like, Mark, it's so interesting that you're here. Wow, the Scolamonts would never let somebody with fairy blood in. And the way that she says it, this woman is pro-segregation. She also then starts to say all this whack homophobic shit about Magnus and Alec.
Tells us to love everyone. I mean, even the whores and the homosexuals, but it's just so hard.
Meanwhile, everything that she says, Julian is trying to combat her with factual information. She'll say something stupid like, oh, fairy blood this, and he'll be like, actually, people with fairy blood are known to be blah, blah, blah.
And I used to have this mental illness where I thought logical arguments would change people's minds.
And Zara's basically like, I'm sorry, that doesn't fit my narrative, so I will not be accepting facts at this time. This book was written in 2017 to give you an idea of the political world that Cassie Clare might be alluding to. America 2017. Okay, keep this in mind. Zara even doubles down and somehow manages to bring up immigration policy. She starts talking about how downworlders need to be put on a registry because they are dangerous criminals. So we just need to do a little fix here. There we go. Okay. And because we've gone a few pages without some Julian and Emma relationship drama, we're bringing it back, baby. So Julian is up with Arthur having some kind of meeting. When Emma appears, she just kind of wants to check on Julian. And now that everyone is kind of aware of Arthur's situation, it's not forbidden for her to go up there. So she goes in and is just sort of like, hey, how y'all doing? Whatever they were talking about, Julian wraps it up really quickly and basically drags her out of the attic. And he looks really frustrated. So Emma immediately starts apologizing. She doesn't know what she did, but she's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean to make you angry. And Julian's like, I'm not angry. I'm not allowed to be angry, Emma. And Emma's like, uh-oh.
I know, but he's so cute.
He is not talking about Uncle Arthur. He's like, I know that Mark isn't trying to hurt me and this isn't his fault. And I know that you're doing the right thing, but it's killing me, Emma. It's killing me. And he's like pacing back and forth in the attic stairs, like running his hands through his hair. He's losing it. He's losing it. Emma is like, Julian, I'm gonna turn 18 in a couple months and Christina and I are gonna fuck off and see the world. So I'll be out of your hair and we'll just forget each other. And Julian is like, we will? You think so? His mouth twisted into an impossible smile. And Emma is like, Julian, we made a mistake, but being together wasn't the mistake. She's like, the Parvati bond was, right? Like us being together felt right. He gets just close enough to trace words on her skin like they always used to. The words, I am ruined. And then he was kissing her. Emo boys, emo boys. Apparently the kiss felt like forever. It felt like no time at all. And the reason that Julian is so frazzled right now is because when he was up in the attic, he was thinking about how much he wished Emma was with him. And when he turned around and Emma was there, he felt like he was having a dream or he was hallucinating or he was losing his mind. And yeah, that could be a weird coincidence. You know, when doesn't Julian want to see Emma? But Emma freaks out because when she's thinking about like, why did I go up to the attic? I don't usually go up to the attic. She realizes that she felt like called there. She felt pulled to Julian. And Emma is like, oh, fuck, this is bad. This is real bad. But then a lightning bolt from the approaching storm kind of like shakes Emma out of it and she pushes him away and she says the worst word she possibly could. She says, Mark. Julian whitened. He looked as if he were about to explain or apologize for the kiss when the sky ripped down the middle. They're looking out the attic window like, oh, brother. It always gets worse. Out of the clouds emerges a figure on a red-eyed, foaming horse. It was Gwen, the lord and leader of the Wild Hunt, and he did not look pleased.
Girls just wanna dance.
We go down to meet Gwen. Yeah. You see how I'm trying to cancel the bad energy? You see this? All right. We go to meet Gwen at the front door. Diana is there. Diana opens the door looking hot as always. And Gwen immediately is like, oh, Lovely lady, I don't believe we have met. And Diana's like, yeah, I'm the Blackthorn's tutor. And Gwen is like, a tutor?
What a coincidence. Where I'm from, teachers and tutors are like the most important people in society. I think we really honor them and they deserve it. You deserve it.
And Emma is like, oh my God, is Gwen flirting with Diana? So we're off to a great start, but Gwen quickly switches back into business mode. He's like, where is my Mark? Mark comes forward and he's like, bad news. I come bearing bad news. I just found out that Kieran was found guilty of the murder of Earloth, who was the fairy who was working with Malcolm. Kieran killed him and he was found guilty. And so I hate to be the one to tell you, man, but he is sentenced to death and the execution is happening tomorrow. Thought you should know. The expression on Mark's face was unreadable. If it was grief, Emma didn't recognize it. If it was anger, then it was unlike any anger he had shown before. And Mark tries to be like, I don't care. Because remember, Kieran betrayed him. He caused so much pain for Mark's family, and any actions he took at the very end of the book, Mark is like, yeah, that doesn't negate it. So, thanks for letting me know, but I'm unaffected. And Gwen is kind of pissed about this. He's yelling at Mark like, he was a member of the Wild Hunt. Why are you so unloyal? All of these things. When Julian jumps in and is like, what are you doing, Gwen? He says, what do you want him to do? Did you come here just to see him be sad? And Gwen is like, ugh, I hate dealing with stupid mortals. No, I didn't come to make you grieve for Kieran, Mark. I came so that you could go rescue him.
Was there a question in there?
No, that's a question. I don't think I heard a question, no. I need your help.
Better, but no.
Why can't all-powerful Gwen do it? Because Kieran is being held deep in the Unseelie court, and Gwen has no control. That is out of his jurisdiction. But at the end of the day, Mark gets the final call, and he says, no. Gwen's face tightened. You have no honor. And then he disappeared back into the storm. They all rush back into the Institute to see how Mark is doing because after Gwen yelled at him, Mark bolted. They all find him in the library and they're like, Mark, are you okay? And he immediately runs into Emma's arms. And even though this isn't romantic, this kills Julian, especially after being so close to Emma seconds ago. He says, this feels like a sharp splash of acid on raw skin. But Julian shuts down his emotions as he always does and turns to Diana, who had followed them in. She looks a little dazed and she's holding a glimmering acorn. And remember, this is like how the Fae kind of communicate. Sometimes there's letters in it. They each have a different function. And so Mark is like, oh, awesome, cool. He says it's a fair gift. If you crack it open, Gwen will be summoned to help you. And Emma is like, wow, I wonder why Gwen would give Diana a gift. And Mark is like, he's kind of like, yeah, I thought that Gwen's heart was closed to that kind of thing. But Diana, I think you just melted that fairy's heart. And Julian has apparently never seen Diana look so rattled. So even though Diana is like the coolest, smartest, hottest person that they know, she's still a 28-year-old woman, is kind of freaked out by the fact that an immortal fairy warrior is kind of flirting with her. Okay, so she's a little concerned, but we can't tease her too much because the fucking Buzzkill squad walks in. They had been out in the water. They had taken some boats out to, again, they're looking for Malcolm Fade's body. So Emma, just trying to be fucking nice, imagine that, is like, hey guys, how did it go? Find anything? And one of these centurions is like, yeah, we think we actually found where the body's located, but we couldn't dive because of the storm, so we came back in. And Zara is like, up, don't share our secrets, and like pushes them out of the room. So, I fucking hate this girl. And she is a prominent character for this entire book. So if you're sick of her, you know who else hates the Centurions? Livy, Ty, and Kit, who, remember, are now investigating what the hell Centurions are actually here for. And Kit is having a rough time because he's looking down at them from their hiding place and he's just like, I cannot tell these freaks apart. They're all wearing uniforms. And Ty is like, yeah, they're really hard. I know that there's twins over there. And Livy is like, the fuck? That's our thing. This house isn't big enough for 2 sets of twins. But it seems like they're onto something because they observe Zara while everybody is outside distracted by Gwen. then they saw Zara go into Diana's office and start like rummaging around, and she has no business being in there. But their little stakeout is interrupted by Christina, who like pops her head in and she's like, "What you doing up here?" And Livia's like talking shit about the Centurion. And Kit knows Christina to be like a rather uptight girl, and so he assumes that they're about to get yelled at. But instead, she sat down, her mouth curling into a smile. "Count me in," she says. And Kit was surprised at how much he was looking forward to continuing this little investigation. A little bit later, Emma is in Christina's room, kind of catching everybody up on the Mark drama and just talking about how life isn't feeling so awesome. She's basically trying to figure out how to live life as it is now. She says, "What I miss most is just being Parabatai, being Emma and Julian. I miss my best friend. I miss the person I told everything to." And speak of the devil, Julian pops in. He's like, "Hey girls, have you guys seen Mark?" Neither of them have. And even though it looks like it physically pains him to ask this, he's like, "Emma, do you think he could be in your room?" Because remember, he spends pretty much every night in her room, and Julian hates that.
Do you ponder existence often?
No, baby.
And Emma is like, "No, not with these Centurions walking around. I lock my room when I'm not in it." And so Julian is like, "Okay, well, do you mind going on a little house tour with me? Because I cannot find Mark, and I'm a little concerned. Maybe we should start in his room, and you will see why." So they open Mark's bedroom door, and it is like a nature reserve. He has brought every little piece of nature that he could fit into his room in there. So he's got like a full cacti. The floor is covered in pebbles. So that's weird, but not concerning. The concerning bit is that Mark's only pair of boots and his jacket are missing. And something about Christina entering his bedroom must have triggered some kind of magic, because immediately a letter with a rune written on it flies up to Christina and it's addressed to her. So he left her a letter. And when she reads it, she's basically like, oh no, he went to Fairy. He's gonna go get his boy. And Julian is like, "Fabulous, me too." And he like starts getting ready to go. And Emma is like, oh, me too then. Yeah, I'm going. And Christina's just looking at the both of them like, could we turn our brains on for a second? Do you even know how to get into Fairy? Do you even know how Fairy works? You are talking to the Fairy expert in the house. You think you're gonna go on this mission without me? She pulls out her necklace that she always wears, and Christina not only studies the Fae, but her family has a history of working with the Fae. So she's like, "I have this little trinket that is supposed to protect us from how time warps in Fairy." So for some people, if they go into Fairy, what feels like a minute could be hours in the real world. She's like, "This kind of helps keep that level. So if you stay near me, you should also be protected." Julian is sort of like, "Oh great, give it to me." And Christina is like, "The fuck? This isn't leaving my neck. We are going together." And also for the question of how to get to Fairy, do you know? And Julian and Emma are like, "No." And Christina's like, So there's something called the Moon Road, and it only opens, it's kind of like this rainbow that they cross, and it only opens at a certain time of night. And Christina is like, "Lucky for you, I know about it, so let's go."
Rural Louisiana. The ambulance can drive 25 miles over the posted speed limit, so we'll get there by 9 p.m. There's a small airport there, mostly servicing crop dust to deter any plane in the interest of national security. Stop clapping, you idiots! We gotta move!
And lucky for them indeed, because that road only opens at a certain point, they actually pretty quickly catch up to Mark, because he had to wait for the gate to open, right? They get in a big fight about, should he come back? Should we go? What are we gonna do? And they decide, fuck it, let's go get Kieran. And pretty much immediately when they decide this, there's a creepy gate fairy that pops out of nowhere, and basically Clare, messy. Every single person has to go up and whisper a deep, dark secret to this fairy. We don't, as the audience, as the reader, we don't know what has been whispered, okay? And then the fairy whispers a kind of prophecy back to them. So everyone's walking into Fairy with some secret information. They do not share it with each other, because that would be too smart. okay? And then we get this teeny tiny scene that we know is going to be important, but essentially we are with Arthur Blackthorne in the attic. He hears a noise behind him, so he turns around and he sees a face that he knows is familiar, but he's really bad with faces recently, so he just can feel terror. He gets bad vibes immediately from this face, even though he can't place it. And who is it? Queen of bad vibes. Zara Dearborn herself. And Zara is like, hi, Mr. Blackthorne. Didn't mean to scare you. I'm Zara Dearborn. I believe you know my father. So we're pretty sure that bad vibes run in the family, okay? Before they left for Ferry, Julian had run up to the attic to talk to Arthur and be like, hey, we're gonna step out for a bit. Don't fucking talk to anybody, okay? Because Arthur has not had his potion for weeks. And so Julian is like, do not answer the door, do not let anyone in, do not talk to anybody. And Zara Dearborn comes upstairs and bulldozes that whole plan. We also like immediately have trouble once we get to Ferry. They fall from the moon road onto this luscious green grass. It's nighttime. Christina's having the time of her life because she's studied Ferry. She never thought she'd actually be here, and she's under the night sky. And apparently in Ferry, the stars are different. It's as if there are gemstones in the sky, and she's just like, oh, heaven, this is great. Until they realize they did not plan this very well. First of all, their runes don't work. Second of all, their fancy demon slaying swords don't work. Mark specifically told them not to dress like shadowhunters. They are dressed like shadowhunters.
Strapping? You can't make us look like losers on the first day of school.
And what makes you the expert?
I was cool in high school and you weren't.
Fair.
They are essentially on a suicide mission in a realm where they are the most hated people, and none of their tools work. Emma's trying to lighten the mood. She's like, don't worry guys, we're shadow hunters. We can do anything. And besides, we don't need energy runes. We can get energy the old fashioned way. And Mark is like, drugs? And Emma's like, chocolate, Mark. I brought chocolate. And she like pulls out snack bars. So yeah, armed with nothing but a chocolate bar, the four of them are going to rescue Kieran from the Unseelie King. And because we don't have enough messy romance going on, we're gonna add to the pot. Are you ready? Because good Lord. And this also really pertains to the new book series that's going to come out, because remember, Livy, Ty, Kit, Drew are going to be the main characters of the new series that Cassandra Clare is writing. Okay, pay attention to them. Thank you. They are in the midst of their investigation. Again, apparently the Centurions just put up a bunch of wards around the Institute. Ty is off climbing a tree to try and see the wards and figure them out a little bit better, when Livy on the ground turns to Kit and is just like, would you kiss me? Kit is like, what? Livy basically feels very trapped in this house. She's got a rather controlling older brother, Julian, doesn't get out much, you know. She wants to live a big life. She says, I've never been kissed. I've barely met anyone outside of my family. I just want to experience something new. And Kit is like, oh, tempting, but you have got a scary older brother. And Livy's like, no, I don't. And Kit's like, oh, I'm sorry, you have two scary older brothers, Livy. I value my life. And Livy's like, okay, well, if you don't want to, you don't have to. But Kit, surprising himself, does. His world was sliding away from him, and here was a pretty girl offering him something to cling to. And so he did. It was soft and sweet and warm. He forgot the ground under his feet, the world around him, everything but the sense of being comforted by someone holding him. How was that? He said afterwards. And Livy's like, actually, you know what? Thank you. You were very sincere. You gave it your all. Wasn't too bad. And Kit's like, yeah, well, you know, Herondales don't have anything, especially not kisses. And Livy's like, that's the first time you called yourself a Herondale. And Kit's not escaping the Shadowhunter accusations, because later that night, Livy comes into his room to wake him up, and he immediately goes to his nightstand, grabs his dagger, and has it to her throat. And Livy is just smiling down at him like, hell yeah, brother. That's what I'm talking about. Look at those Shadowhunter instincts.
That my best friend. She a real bad bitch.
But why are we awake? Because Zara is on the move. Ty put a tracker on her, and it's showtime. Where does she head? To the beach, because nothing good ever happens on the beach. They're following her. It's low tide. All the tide pools are out. Ty gets very distracted because remember, he loves animals. So he's like picking up a starfish, and Livy is like, Tiberius Blackthorne, I swear to God, unless you're going to be throwing that at Zara, put that starfish back. And Kit is like, don't throw it, man. It's a waste of a perfectly good starfish. And Ty laughs. The salt air had tangled his arrow-straight black hair, and his eyes glowed like moonlight on water. And Kit just stared. He was unable to think of anything else clever to say, but he wished he could. Ty's laughter is a rare and precious thing. Uh-oh. So, anyway, they get back to business. They follow Zara. Where does she head? To a cave. I don't know what's with the black thorns and creepy caves. This one also has a table in it. This seems like her office, but they're like, okay, maybe she just needs private time, whatever. When another centurion comes from out of the darkness, and this is Manuel. I mentioned him once. He's Diego's friend. He so far has seemed like less shitty than all the other centurions. We haven't caught him saying shit. So it's weird that he's with Zara right now, okay? Zara is answering letters from her father. We don't know who her father is, but apparently he's a pill, very similar to Zara. And they start talking shit about Mark, basically, and how, like, they really want to get rid of Mark because fuck the Fae. But no, that's not part of the plan. That's not part of the plan. We gotta focus. What is the plan? Why are they really here? Sure, yeah, they're here to help with Malcolm Fade, but why is this group in particular here? Because they want to get control of the Los Angeles Institute. Basically, somebody heard a rumor that Arthur Blackthorne was not of sound mind and that somebody is her father. And his grand plan is that if we can prove that Arthur is not fit to lead, Zara's father, Mr. Dearborn, would be able to take over the Los Angeles Institute. And why does he want that? Because as head of an institute, he will be able to propose the registry. Remember, the Dearborns are all about segregation. We'll be able to propose it as law immediately. And once it passes, we can begin the identifications. Her eyes glittered. Every downworlder will be forced to wear the sign. Literal magical Nazis. Just so we're clear. Magical Nazi. Zara Dearborn. Okay? Manuel and Zara eventually leave, but not before saying something really cryptic about how Zara and Diego's marriage was arranged and there's something fishy there. I'm sure we will get more of that later. But off they trot, leaving Ty, Livy, and Kit sitting in the cave in stunned silence. We are at 25%, ladies and gentlemen. The sound that woke Christina was so faint she thought at first she might have imagined it. So the gang has set up camp and have fallen asleep, but when Christina wakes up, she doesn't see Mark, and she is concerned. So she decides to go follow this strange noise, and hopefully it leads her to Mark. As she's leaving the campground, she has to pass Julian and Emma, and her heart breaks because she sees their hands between them were clasped. Somehow they found their way towards each other in sleep, and she wondered if she should reach down, gently separate them. But no. There's no way to gently separate Jules and Emma. The mere action of separating them at all was like an act of violence, a tear in the fabric of the world. So she keeps walking, she finds Mark, and she realizes the noise that woke her was actually the light, beautiful sound of a harp, because she just stumbled upon a fairy revel, a fairy party, if you will. And she is so psyched because remember, Christina has been studying fairies her whole life. She was excited just to see the sky. Now she's seeing actual fairies at an actual party that she could actually partake in. So she immediately heads in and Mark tries to stop her, which I must point this out. Tina, if you're thinking this girl's out of her mind, she's not, because when she first ran into Mark, she made him prove that he was who he is. Okay, she's thinking like a scholar, okay? And he basically said, like, one of the first things he ever said to her, which was like such a Mark-ism. He was like, oh, my heart can hear the wind or something. And Christina was like, that's my dude. That's my Mark. Okay, and now that we've established that Mark is here, she's like head first into the party. And they're all yelling at her like, yeah, girl, come dance. Remember, she is dressed head to toe as a shadow hunter. They know who she is. They're trying to get her in trouble. So they're like, yeah, girl, come onto the dance floor. And dance she did. As she danced, she was no longer the girl who let Diego fool her once, then twice. The girl who was there to catch her friends every time they fell. Now she was the one falling. But luckily, Mark is there. So he is like, Tina, turn on that scholar brain again. I know that you have so many brain cells in there. Let's use them. Okay? This is not a safe place for a shadow hunter. And he knows that telling Tina outright not to do something will have the opposite effect. So he's trying to like ease her off the dance floor by just talking to her. So he's like, and by the way, like, I'm glad you're excited about this. Why did you start studying fairies. Like, we know why she came to LA was because of Mark, but why did she study fairies in the first place? And Tina is like, still you. She said that she was, 12, 13 years old when the whole war happened. And she remembered hearing the news of what happened to his family and just being so upset about it. Like, after the Cold Peace, and then he and his sister were separated from the rest of his family just because of their fairy blood. Apparently her family would make fun of her because she was so obsessed and sad that they called him her little lost boy. And she wanted to study fairies and fix the Cold Peace ever since. And Mark's attempt to kind of distract her does not work because a fairy walks by with like a tray of drinks and Tina just grabs it and downs whatever the hell that was.
What is this? Right on, sister.
Mark, loyal as hell, follows her. They dance a bit, and then a fairy comes up and ties something onto both of their wrists, this little red string connecting them. Mark looks down and is just like, oh fuck, picks Tina up and just starts running. He is like, yeah, we're getting off the dance floor right now. They run far enough away that they aren't affected by the music anymore because remember, with fairies, everything is pulling you into trouble, right? Whether it's the drinks or the music or blah, blah, blah. So Mark runs off and he uses a knife to cut the string. The ribbon made a little shrieking sound like a wounded animal, but it gave way. And Mark is like, okay, that could have been bad. I'm assuming you've studied these. Do you know what that spell could have been? And Tina's just like, I mean, it looks like a binding spell. And Mark is like, yes, it's a binding spell. And do you know what some binding spells do? He was like, the most common one is they tie people together and make one of them go insane so that they jump in a river and drown themselves, conveniently drowning the person that they're tied to as well. Wouldn't that have been fun? Wouldn't that have been great for Julian and Emma to wake up to? Mark is like, I could have done this alone. I should have done this alone. But he doesn't stay mad for long. He's not mad at Tina. He was just very scared. And it also helps that Tina profusely apologizes immediately. She's like, I'm so sorry. I'm just so excited. Like, I've studied them for years and I'm here, And Mark is like, honestly, I'm kind of having the opposite feelings. Like, I'm so glad someone human is here. Like, I'm glad you're excited to see the fairies. Damn, am I happy that you're mortal. And you're so human, Tina. And he means that as a compliment. He says, fairies aren't very nice. You're one of the most human people I know. He said, you're kind. In the hunt, there's not much kindness. Just thinking that when the Cold Peace was passed, there was someone thousands of miles away from me crying for me, for a boy they'd never met who had been abandoned. And Tina's like, hold on, I didn't cry. Let's get that straight. And Mark is like, well, Tina, you're crying now. He brushes the tears off of her cheeks. Tina catches his hand and kisses him. Mark is really ecstatic about this, okay? Remember, Tina's always been the one who's like, Diego, Emma, He's very excited. So they're laughing, they're whispering, they're having a great time. And Mark is just like, I never thought you'd even look at me. He's like, you're Shadowhunter royalty. Tina laughs and is like, well, I mean, yeah, that's what a little fairy drinking and dancing will do to you. And Mark is like, what? He backs away real fast. He is like, oh, you thought you were acting this way because you thought you were drunk, babe. No, he said, I would never have let you grab a drink from a tray and drink it if it was fairy wine. That was just random ass berry juice. You are stone cold sober, girl. He says, there's no cloak of magic over the things we're doing right now. He feels betrayed. He's like, I am not cut out for humans and their weird actions. They're like half lies and not admitting their feelings. He's like, I know that I said I liked humans. I know, but goddamn, I can only take so much. And Tina is like, you're lying too. What about with Emma? And Mark is like, okay, so we're lying about the same thing. Get off your high horse, girl. And Tina's like, okay, that wasn't a good example. We have to lie about that because Julian is in love with her. And if what did you say? Says Mark. And Mark puts it together real fast. He goes deathly pale. And he is like, wait, why did we have to do this and this? And they're parabatai. He has a mini mental breakdown and runs off to camp. Tina follows after him being like, oh shit. Like this was the one secret I really had to keep. I fucked up. And note, she was sober. She can't even blame it on the fairy wine. So as they're running back to camp, she cuts through some trees, looks up on the hill and sees the shape of Julian Blackthorn. Julian also woke up because of the music, and also that he had to get the fuck away from Emma. When he opened his eyes and saw that their hands were clasped together, his heart almost cleaved in two. So he literally needs to take a walk. So he finds a hill that's overlooking the fairy revel, and he just kind of like breathes when almost immediately Emma sits down next to him. And when he looks at her, before he can really register in his brain that she doesn't have her sword, the Cortana, with her, she just reaches over, puts her arms around his neck, and they are kissing. A lot of kissing in this book, just in case you haven't picked that up already, all right? Her arms around his neck, her lips on his. He just surrendered. He loses his mind for a goddamn minute, okay? He's like, fucking finally. When he realizes, that's not Emma. He says, you didn't grow up with someone. Dream of them. Let them shape your soul. Put their fingerprints on your heart. And not know when the person you're kissing isn't them. He yanks himself away. So yeah, unlike Christina, Julian didn't really think too much about fairies and their love of illusions. So he didn't really question when Emma came to sit down next to him. Now, instead of Emma, next to him is a fairy woman with hair made of cobwebs. She was beautiful, but also hideous. Julian feels sick to his stomach. He's about to go for a knife when luckily Mark steps in and is like, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, we're not gonna kill a fairy in our first couple hours here. Let's simmer down, simmer down. Mark explains what that was, and it is a particular kind of fairy that feeds off of desires. It shows up differently to each individual person. So Julian is like, thank God, because he's the only person who saw it as Emma. Like, it was using its powers on him, so it showed up as Emma, but Mark, when he like ran up, he only saw the fairy. So dodge that bullet, or so he thinks. That's when Emma comes running down another hill and is just like, oh my God, thank God you guys are safe. What the fuck? I woke up to an empty campground in fairy. I thought we were cursed. She actually says, I thought you guys all ate fairy fruit without me and were running around naked. And Julian's like, no nudity today. Trying to act cool as if he didn't just make out with a fake Emma. He's like, all right, well, on that note, let's get going. Back at the Institute really quickly, because this scene is unnecessarily long. Livy, Ty, and Kit decide, after all they heard about Zara trying to take over the LA Institute, even though Julian has told them again and again and again not to bother Uncle Arthur, they're like, we think this is as good a time as any to break that rule. So they go up to the attic and quickly put the pieces together. That Uncle Arthur is sick. He's not running the Institute. Zara was kind of right. And Diana confirms this because Diana walks up behind them. She's always watching these three, okay? She has her hands full, but these two, Livy and Ty, top priority troublemakers. So yeah, she basically brings them down to her office and explains everything. And they're a little hurt that Julian wouldn't share this with them, especially Livy. She's like, we could handle it. We're old enough. He didn't need to do this alone. But Diana's like, hey, I've had the same conversation with him for years. So the gang tells Diana about what they've heard from Zara, and she is concerned. She doesn't want any more Dearborns in the Institute. So she decides she is going to call Magnus and Alec because they're going to be able to work on the whole Downworlder alliance thing because Magnus is a warlock, right? So they're going to come to our aid, hopefully. So that's what the rest of the gang is doing at the LA Institute. But let's go back to Fairy, where all the drama is going down, because did you think we were just gonna have a couple kisses and then nothing was going to become of it? No, because you know how Emma came running down the hill and was like, oh my God, you guys, I thought you were naked, ha ha ha. Well, moments before that, she was standing on top of that hill, looking down at Julian, making out with a fairy girl. Because remember, it only showed up as Emma to Julian. So Emma is like, oh shit, this is exactly what I wanted. She wanted Julian to move on, find other loves, right? But at the same time, she has to look away to keep herself from throwing up.
Oh, it is, I admit, the tiniest bit unlike I anticipated.
But she says, in a strange way, she welcomed the pain because it was a pain she deserves. Speaking of kisses, they are walking through Fairy. There's a lot of walking through Fairy in the first part of this book, I gotta say. Tina kind of pulls up to Emma and is like, girl, I gotta tell you some things. She's like, number one, I kissed Mark. And Emma is like, oh, okay. Is this like a fist bump situation, or is this like a, oh no, what do we do? What's the vibe? Because Tina's not having the best time with relationships right now. And Tina is like, no, I wanted it, but I don't know what to do. And Emma's like, well, you know, I kind of think Mark and my thing has run its course. So feel free, you know, pursue the relationship, girl. He's hot. I've always thought it. I had a crush on him when I was 12. I get it, girl. Go for it. And she like gives Tina her blessing, and Tina doesn't look at ease because she's like, well, okay, so the Mark and you thing. I gotta kind of tell you that I might have said to Mark that, and then she gets cut off by Mark himself, who is like, halt, because they've found the unseelie court. They are clearly getting ready for Kieran's execution. It's kind of like a campground or like a festival looking situation. There's lots of tents everywhere. Okay. So they decide to split up and try and find where Kieran is ASAP. Julian is like, Tina, you're with me. Emma and Mark go off together. And the second they're alone, Mark whips around and is like, Emma, we're not fucking doing this anymore. He's like, I am not going to be an instrument of pain for my brother that I love more than life itself. He's like, if you want to pick somebody else to fool, do it. But I can't be a part of this. And Emma didn't know that he knew. So she's kind of taken aback by this, and she's like, Mark, it had to be you. It had to be you. You are the only one he would be jealous of. And Mark gets this deranged look on his face, like the depth of anger that he feels, the limit does not exist. He is fired up. And just as he's about to speak, he gets interrupted again because no one can finish a goddamn sentence in this book. It's Julian. They apparently found a good position to be in for whenever the execution happens. And he's like, so come this way. But Mark is frozen in place. And then he just bolts. Julian and Emma are like, again? And they chase after him because who did he find but Kieran? And they are bringing him out onto the stage. Julian has caught up to him and is like white knuckle gripping Mark, keeping him out from running directly into the line of fire. He wants to run like right into the unseelie king's arms. Okay, not a good plan. Not a good plan. Julian is holding on for dear life. The unseelie king comes out to make some kind of speech about why he needs to kill one of his sons. And as they're bringing Kieran out, Julian just turns to Emma and is like, keep an eye on Mark, and then walks up to the stage. Just Julian, just strolling up there. Emma's like, what the fuck is going on? The king is jazzed. The king is like, oh, 2 for 1? 2 executions today? It's not even my birthday. This is too much. Bring him here, guards, so I can kill him myself. And Julian is like, yeah, you're not gonna kill me. Why? Because the clave sent me. No, they didn't. He says, if you kill me, that would mean open war. And Emma and co are standing on the side. And Emma is like, he said that with so much confidence. Emma's very concerned about this aspect of Julian, that he can just lie so effortlessly.
I know, but he's so cute.
But at the same time, she's also so proud. She's like, yeah, that's my Parbatai, the only 17-year-old boy in the world who could make the king of the Dark Court doubt himself. And I gotta tell you, this scene is way, way too long because it's all about fairy puns. And this is why I will always stand by my assertion that Julian was born to be a lawyer. Like, he should have been born a mundane, because he just takes note of every single thing the fairies say. He basically answers all of the king's questions of like, well, if you're from the clave, why didn't we know? Oh, the message didn't get relayed in time, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Back and forth. He's got an answer for everything. The king can't seem to find a hole in his argument that he was sent on official clave business. And why are they here? To collect Kieran, because Kieran is a person of interest for the shadowhunters as well. And this is when they bring Mark out, because Mark is Fae and shadowhunter, and it's supposed to feel super badass, like Julian and Mark staring down the unseelie king. But the king is just like, they sent an envoy of children? What is this? But Julian's argument is basically that Kieran killed Earloth to help and kind of take revenge for the deaths of all of the Shadowhunter and Downworlders that were at the hands of Malcolm Fade. So even though he killed another fairy, he actually did it in defense of everybody else. Julian's like, And besides, Earloth helped kill other fae. Like, shouldn't you also be proud of Kieran? And this is where the Unseelie King makes his first mistake. Because he says, oh, the fairies that Malcolm Fade killed were from the Seelie court, so it doesn't matter to me. And that's exactly what Julian wanted him to say, because the Unseelie King, you know how Tina found those gloves that had his icon on it, and the icon is a crown split in half? So the reason for that is because he believes that he should be king of both courts. So until the Seelie and Unseelie are one, he considers himself a king with half a crown. And so Julian is like, that's really funny that you don't care about Seelie Fae when you want to be their ruler. Aren't you the rightful ruler of the Seelie? Don't you give a shit about their well-being?
Miss, for $1, name 3 white people.
They end up going back and forth. He makes a really good argument because at one point, another fairy prince steps in and is like, you have no rights here, like we should kill you right now. And apparently there's this common saying that like the children and the mad are also the fair folk. And Julian's like, and besides, we're children. So yeah, the fair folk rules do apply to us. And the fairy prince is like,
You aren't children, you're fully grown.
and Julian's like, rewind the tape, babe. I thought I heard your father say, envoy of children? Are you saying that the Seelie Queen's a liar?
For $1, true or false? True or false? Leah Michelle can play the flute.
It's just pandemonium, okay? Every single word counts. And Julian is the one person who can like swivel through all of the wordplay. When Julian says like, are you calling your king a liar? The crowd is gagged. This is literally like sitcom level. Like there's totally a laugh track and a gasp track. The king is basically like, shut up, son. You have done enough. And if you want Kieran back, you gotta fight for him. Julian says, yeah, sure, that tracks, not realizing that the Unseelie King will pick his fighter. And he picks Emma. Julian is a little bit terrified, but he also knows that Emma is the best fighter in their generation. He's very confident that she's not gonna die today. And he tells her as such. He's like, listen, no mercy. I know you don't like killing, but like it's either one fae or all of us. We gotta get home. You're not dying today. So she fights like hell. The king picks one of his guards out of the lineup. He's got like a ton of armor and a helmet on, but that's nothing for Emma Carstairs. When the Cortana pierces the fairy's gut, the king says, remove his helmet and end it. That is our tradition. So she has to cut off a fairy's head. She's like, oh, all right, okay. She takes a deep breath and wrenches the helmet away. The man lying in the grass beneath Emma was human, not fairy, and his face was more familiar to Emma than her own. Her hands fall to her side, the Cortana dangling from nerveless fingers. It was her father. But now let's completely switch gears and we find ourselves back at the LA Institute in the kitchen with Ty and Kit, because these two are always in the kitchen. They're growing boys. Kit is like rummaging through the pantry looking for cookies. Ty is sitting on the kitchen counter with a weasel on his shoulder, because of course he has a weasel. And he is telling Kit everything he knows about weasels. It started off with like, hey man, why do you got one of those? And he just went deep into the lore. When all of a sudden Ty stops mid-sentence and is like, wait, Kit, are you bored? And Kit was like, actually, I was really enjoying the sound of your voice. It was so lively and thoughtful. He obviously keeps that to himself. And he's like second guessing himself. He's like, did I look bored? He's like, no, man. No, why are you asking? And Ty just says like, Julian says that sometimes not everybody wants to know all the information I'm giving them. And Kit is like, no, man, deep dive away. You have no idea. I love this shit. But before Ty can tell us any more weasel facts, they're interrupted by a sound, like a window shattering. Ty gently puts the weasel down and then just pulls out blades from everywhere. This boy is like the gentlest, sweetest creature, but he also is covered in weapons at all times.
This goofy little stinker. He loves all things elephant. Wants to be one when he grows up.
You kiss me tomorrow, I'll bite your face off.
So he hands Kit a sword, and Kit is like, I have literally never held one of these before. What am I supposed to do with it? And Ty is like, babe, first time for everything. Let's go. And off they trot outside the Institute to see what's going on. And sure enough, all hell is broken loose, because of course it has. All of these sea demons crawling out of the ocean up to the Institute. The wards have broken. They are under attack. Diana runs out and puts herself between everyone else and the demons because that's what she does best. Zara pops out of fucking nowhere to be like, actually, the Centurions are gonna take over and we don't take orders from Diana. Almost slaps her. If I was Diana, I would have slapped her. Diana's a better woman than I am. She whips around and is like, Zara, I swear to God. She says, shut up, you stupid child.
You're going to hell.
Just as long as you won't be there.
I can assure you, I won't.
Good.
Besides, you've never even seen a real battle because didn't the Dearborn family hide away in Zurich during the war? So why don't you sit back like you do best and let me handle it? Diego strides forward and is like, okay, boss, what's the plan? And Diana is like, kill them all, obviously. And off they go. The chaos is already chaotic enough when who comes out of the Institute waving a sword but Arthur Blackthorn. The Blackthorns who are here are freaked out by this because they know that even in his worst mental state, Arthur has enough control to not be seen. He knows when to hide. So something is clearly wrong and he's screaming. He's like, get away. Something's wrong. When the creepiest shit you've ever seen comes out of the ocean. Let me describe it to you. It was a figure that had once been a man. He still had the blurred shape of one, but his skin was fish belly gray and he limped because most of one arm and his entire side had been chewed away. His shirt hung in rags, showing where the white bones of his ribs had been picked clean. He smiled with a mouth that was mostly lipless, and in his hand, he clutched a black sack that's fabric stained wet and dark. Shadowhunters, he said. How I've missed you. This creepy ocean zombie is none other than Malcolm Fade. Found the body right there. It's not dead though. Sort of. In case he wasn't disgusting enough, out of that sack, what does he pull but a severed head of one of the Centurions, one of the ones who was on patrol at this point. So rest in peace, John Cartwright, even though you were a racist. That's a bummer. What does Malcolm want? What he always fucking wants. He needs Blackthorn blood to raise his baby girl from the dead. He wants his girlfriend back, Annabelle, okay? And he's like, I'm still here. I'm still asking. So I'll give you a couple days to think about this. You know where to find me. But in 2 days, I need my answer. And have fun with my sea demons while we wait. So he disappears, but we still have to fight all of these sea demons. So the night is long, but what the fuck? Why is Malcolm Fade still walking and talking? That's not good. Back in Ferry, Julian is feeling his own heart break for maybe the 100th time today. Emma is looking down at her father. Mark and Julian look at each other like, this is impossible. He's dead. We know he's dead, okay? Emma just falls to her knees. The King of Fairy is having so much fun watching Emma that he doesn't notice the other 3 Shadowhunters start to move. Mark goes to Kieran, Christina goes to Emma, and Julian creeps up behind the throne. In only a few steps, Julian reaches the back of the fairy prince. His name is Eric, I believe is how you pronounce it. I'm just going to call him Eric for the rest of this. He gets an arm around Eric and has a dagger to his throat. Emma doesn't remember dropping to her knees. She whispers, Daddy, please look at me. She probably hasn't said daddy since she was 7 years old. Blue eyes open on his scarred face, and he looks just as Emma remembered him. And what I didn't tell you is, remember when they were going through the moon gate and they had to tell a secret and they received a prophecy? Emma's prophecy was, you will see again the face of someone you loved who is dead. So in the back of her head, she should have been prepared for this, but I don't think anything really prepares you for this. But she can't do it. She can't cut the throat of her own father. So she just yells, I concede, and she loses the battle. But don't worry, Emma, that's okay because Mark is on the case. Mark is trying to free Kieran, and Kieran, similar to how when we first met Mark was like very convinced that everyone was like an evil person in disguise. He was like really paranoid and confused. Kieran is like, oh, you're deaf. He's like, Mark, oh my God, is it an angel? Have I died? Thank God it was quick. He's literally like, oh, Death, I am so happy you chose the face of Mark. I have missed Mark.
Hey.
And And at first, Mark is like, this is kind of cute. But then Kieran just keeps going and Mark is like, okay, that's enough. This is annoying. You've got to escape. I am not death. I am Mark. I am not an illusion. You are not dying. Mark finally cuts his way through the many, many ropes, tying Kieran down. And the first thing Kieran does when he's free, kisses Mark on the lips. It is a kiss that is transporting Mark to literal other dimensions. When the tent fills with arrows, they are being shot at. So Mark is like, okay, we will continue this. Even though half of them seem to have noticed Kieran and Mark, the other half of the Fae are stood frozen, watching Julian hold a dagger to the throat of the heir of the throne. Because Eric is probably going to be tapped as the next king. He's the favorite. But the Unseelie King is like, don't worry, guys. These are shadowhunters. They have like an honor code or something. They wouldn't kill just like a random innocent person. And Julian looks him dead in the eyes and he's like, you've heard of me, right? Julian Blackthorn? I killed my own father, you dipshit. What's to stop me from killing your son? And that shuts the king up. Julian is like, we're going to take Eric for a ride. All of us are going to leave and we'll let Eric go once we're far enough away. And he's still holding a dagger to this man's throat. He's like, take a look at me, man. Do I look like someone who has literally anything to lose? Meanwhile, Diana is saving everyone's butts because that's what she does. She makes a couple phone calls. She calls our dear friend Katerina, who is her warlock friend, to get down here and make some portals because we are portaling the Blackthorns out of LA. This is the final straw. They're going to be sent to London because remember, Julian's family, the Blackthorns, are originally from London, so they've still got some family or contacts or whatever in England. So we're opening a portal, sending everybody to London. Drew and Tavi go, Livy goes, and Ty hesitates. He looks back and he needs to make sure Kit is coming. The fact that Ty asked him made the back of Kit's throat hurt and he doesn't really know why. Because remember, he feels like he has no family. The fact that Livy and Ty actually give a shit about him and ask him how he is and how he's feeling and, you know, include him in so many things, I think he doesn't even realize how much it affects him. Okay? So he just kind of barely croaks out, I'm coming. So Ty steps through and now it's just Kit and Arthur standing in front of the portal. And Arthur is coming too because number one, he needs to take care of the kids. And number two, he is in no position to fight. Okay, we're not leaving him in LA. But then he gets all blubbery and there are tears in his eyes. And Kit is like, oh no. And he tries to tell Kit through the tears, he's like, just tell my grandnieces and nephews that I love them. He's like, tell them. And Kit is like, whoa there, Grandpa, like, tell him yourself. We're about to get into a portal. Kit is thinking Arthur doesn't understand what's going on. So he's like, we're gonna follow them through and you're gonna see them on the other side. It's okay, let's go. Arthur takes a step towards Kit, puts a hand on his shoulder and he says, tell Julian, thank you. And he shoves Kit through the portal. Kit fell into the whirling, soundless nothingness. Alone. Then a lot of things happen really quickly. So stay with me here. Christina catches up to Emma. Emma is like, fantastic, you're here. You can help me with my dad. And Christina is like, babe, that is not your dad. Specifically because this person is screaming at Emma like, you Nephilium bitch, put me down. She's like, I never met your father. I don't think this is him. And luckily, once again, Christina, scholar, an amazing mind. She is like, I have a piece of iron with me specifically for moments like this. Why don't you touch him with this and tell me it's still your dad? So sure enough, immediately, as soon as the iron touches his body, he just turns into a normal fairy dude and is like, you shadowhunters, scum, blah, blah, blah. Without any hesitation, that fairy is dead. That fairy has been stabbed so many times that Christina has to pull Emma off of him to be like, he's dead, hun. He's dead. So there's that. We also zoom in again to Mark and Kieran. Remember, they were just being shot at with arrows and they managed to get far enough away, but Kieran has been shot. And Kieran is like, what the fuck, Mark? You told me I wasn't dying. And Mark is like, Kieran, you weren't dying a second ago. Then you got shot. Now you're dying. Like, what? Are you an idiot? Like, I might kill you because you're being so annoying. And Kieran is like, oh, It is you. So they have a cute little reunion, but Cassie Clare isn't making this easy on us. It's not just like a cute, lovely reunion because Kieran doesn't remember killing Irla. He's like, I would have, I believe it. Like, I've always wanted to kill that motherfucker, but I actually don't remember. And crazier still, he actually doesn't remember anything since he saw Mark and Christina talking that one time. Do you remember when Mark and Tina were having a conversation and Kieran was like outside the window and ran away? And that's what triggered his whole betrayal of Mark, and Julian got whipped and Emma got whipped and all of this stuff. He conveniently doesn't remember any of that. He actually calls Christina that girl. He's like, yeah, I saw you and that girl talking. That's gonna cause problems. And then Tina sneaks up behind them and is like, that girl's name is Christina Rosales. And Emma has like shaken clear of her blood frenzy, like stabbing that guy a million times. She's still out for blood. She's like, oh, Kieran, amazing. What are we doing today? Any more acts of immense personal betrayal? And Kieran genuinely is like, what? Because he doesn't remember anything. But they've got to bounce. The gang gets all back together. Julian still has a knife to the neck of Eric. I don't know why they thought this. They were like, we're going to run and nobody's going to chase us. Obviously someone's going to chase you. So they're running. They're trying to like escape the Unseelie Court soldiers. And because of Kieran's injury, they can't take a lot of escape routes that they normally would. So like a wall that they want to climb, Kieran can't climb a wall. They come to a lake that they want to swim across. Kieran can't swim. So right when they're about to just leave Kieran, Mark is really pissed at everybody because they're like, fuck this guy. Why are we dragging him around? A literal door, a little hobbit hole opens out of the side of the hill that they're standing at. And there's this little fairy creature that is like, hey, get in here. Luckily, Julian is like, fool me once, you know. He's already fallen for a fairy illusion. So he is like, are you a good fairy or a bad fairy? I'm not jumping into a hill because a creepy little fairy person said so. And she says, I will not harm you. I will aid you, but you need to get in here right now. And they leap through the door because fairies can't lie. And Julian is like, good enough for me. Once they get inside and the door is closed safely, we realize that this little fairy grandmother is named Nene, and they are in the Seelie Court now. And for some reason, it's only in the Unseelie Court where the runes don't work. So they all do healing runes on each other, etc. Unfortunately, though, healing runes don't work on Kieran because Kieran is not a shadowhunter. So we need to find a way to patch him up, but we're pretty sure he's gonna survive. Thank God. Also, Nene is just filled with interesting facts. She's like, yeah, you're in the Seelie Court, you're safe, blah, blah, blah. And who sent her? How did she just pop out of a literal wall? She was looking out for them because she got a warning that some shadowhunters might be in the Unseelie Court. Who did they hear this from? Some other shadowhunters that are actually visiting. A redhead and a tall, handsome blonde boy. Clary and Jace. How did they know that they were in Fairy? I don't know. But they were like, hey, look out for these kids. Save them, they're goodies. So thank you to Clary and Jace, once again, helping out the gang. And fairies don't normally trust shadowhunters, so what is it about these two? Well, apparently they mentioned that this was dealing with the Blackthorn family, Julian and Mark. Nene is like, and I've always trusted the Blackthorns, you know, even my sister fell in love with a Blackthorn once, and she had 2 kids. And Mark is like, oh, you're my mom's sister? And Emma is like, we call that aunt. You could have just said aunt. But that's a thread we're going to follow later because fairies are immortal beings. There's no sense of rushing. So even though this seems like something that we should really talk about right now, Nene is like, later, boy, let's go. We got to heal Kieran. Kieran is actively bleeding out on the Seelie Court floor. So Nene, for some reason, is like, Tina, you're going to help me heal him because you have a healing air about you. And also Mark wants to stay with Kieran. So we've got Tina and Mark following Nene with Kieran. So Julian and Emma are left alone once again. They have been brought to their guest quarters. Emma literally can't help but laugh because this is the most gaudy, over-the-top, romantic room with like one giant plushy bed in it. And she just looks at Julian and she's just like, what the fuck? The universe hates me. But we actually get a really heartwarming scene because even though they're both like struggling internally, Emma is like, fuck this love thing. okay? Like, yes, all right, we're dealing with issues that we love each other, but I really miss my best friend. She's like, can we figure out how to deal with this so that I don't lose you? Because this is really, these past 2 weeks have been the hardest in my life, and I just really want to be around you and not feel like I'm dying. And Julian is like, same girl. He's basically like, when we took that oath as Parabatai, we would always choose each other. Nothing has changed that, and we just got to get over ourselves. So I choose you, Emma. Emma lays her head on his shoulder and says, and I'll always choose you too. The next morning, Julian is woken up by a creepy woman standing at the foot of his bed. Emma sleeps through this, bless her soul. Who is it but the Seelie Queen? She's weird. She had a weird romantic relationship with Sebastian Morgenstern. I feel like that's all you need to know about her. Seelie Queen, why are you waking up Julian? Why are you in his room? She needs to show him something. She has a scrying bowl, so she can see, not the future, but she can see actions happening in other parts of the world. And she's like, I really need you to see something so that we're all working with the same information. And it's about one of your relatives, so I really think you want to come with me. And we look into the scrying bowl. We are taken to the cave, Malcolm's cave, and the relative that we thought would be in trouble, of all the troublemakers of the Blackthorn family, one that we didn't expect comes into the picture. Arthur Blackthorn. Malcolm is there. Malcolm is standing over a casket with Annabelle Blackthorn's dead, rotting body laying there. And Arthur is like, you win. You're going to keep chasing my family. You need Blackthorn blood. You're coming after my grandnieces and nephews, terrorizing them. I don't want any of these babies to die. Take me. And Malcolm is sort of like, deal. He really doesn't give a shit who he kills. He is obsessed with waking up Annabelle, and if Arthur's down, here we go. So this scene is pretty quick, in which Malcolm just walks up and slits Arthur's throat. He bleeds out all over Annabelle's body and dies. Annabelle is laying there with some dry, leathery skin left over. A moan issued from her destroyed throat. Her skin begins crawling back up her body, her chest filling out again, and her eyes snap open. They were Blackthorn eyes, shimmering blue-green as the sea. And Malcolm also transforms. He like kind of comes back to normal. Remember, he was like low-key falling to pieces. He also has been restored. And Malcolm is like, my love, my angel, you are awake, you are safe, like please look at me. But Annabelle is not looking at him. She's looking at the slumped over body of Uncle Arthur, specifically the knife that is still sticking out of his body. And she grabs it. And without a moment's hesitation, she doesn't even give him any last words. She stabs Malcolm in the heart. When Malcolm's head fell back, expressionless, Annabelle simply bent over, snatched his little black book from his belt, and waltzed out. Julian is like practically falling into the scrying glass, trying to see like where she goes, and the Seelie Queen's like, no, it doesn't reach that far, unfortunately. What? Julian is just like the telenovela of it all.
What you say? What you say? Oh, that you. What you say? What.
Malcolm is dead. Arthur is dead, and Annabelle Blackthorn is just walking around with the black book, well and alive. Back in the Seelie court, Julian is like, okay, so we saw that. Why on earth was it so important that I saw it? And the Seelie Queen is like I said, we needed to be working with the same amount of information because I want to strike a bargain with you. And Julian is like, no. Fairy deals? No, I don't do those, actually. I hate all of this wordplay. I had enough of it with the Unseelie King. We're just waltzing out of here, okay? We just wanted Kieran. Thank you for your help. Goodbye. And the Seelie Queen is like, no, Julian, there's one more piece of the puzzle. I think you're gonna want to make a deal. Why? Because allegedly, the Seelie Queen knows how to break the Parabatai bond. And he's just like, I wish it came from anybody else. You've got my attention. So what is the big bargain? The gang gathers. Julian catches them up on everything that he just witnessed. Rest in peace, Arthur. What is the deal? The Seelie Queen needs that black book. She's like, couldn't give a shit about Annabelle. She is old and likely insane. Don't need more of that in my court. I just want the book So track her down and get it for me. And why does she need it? Something to do with the unseelie king. He has apparently taken someone that the Seelie Queen holds very dear, and something about having the black book will help her get them back. She's basically like, the Unseelie King is a bigger threat to me right now than the Shadowhunters, so I will work on your side, because she's loyal to whoever the winning team is, okay? Remember, she was on like the bad side of the previous Shadowhunter war, so she's just like, listen, I fight for myself, and right now we're on the same team, so let's work together. Also, once she gets rid of the Unseelie King, we need to put one of his sons on the throne. And everybody turns to Kieran, and Kieran is like, oh, fuck no. He somehow looks insulted and frightened at the same time. He's like, absolutely the fuck not. And the Seelie Queen is like, no, not you. She's like, you got the good looks, but I don't think you're a king in the making. I'm talking about your brother, Prince Adeon. And apparently Adeon is like, okay. So Kieran is like, all right, like by fairy terms, he's not totally insane. So we're gonna cross that bridge when we get to it, but Kieran is basically going to be the fairy Shadowhunter liaison. So he's stuck with the gang currently. And in order to become a liaison, he needs to swear loyalty to one of the Shadowhunters. And he's gonna do it with Mark when Julian jumps in between them. He's like, up. Speaking from experience, making an oath where love is involved, not a good sign. Pick anyone else. And without any hesitation, Kieran just turns to Tina and is like, I swear my loyalty to the Lady of the Roses. And that's that. So now Kieran is like, somehow oath-bound to Tina, which I feel like is gonna come up later. But for now, we have to return to the mundane world and hunt down this black book to overthrow a king. No big deal. Typical day in the Shadowhunter world, okay? How are we getting home? I'm so glad you asked, because the throne room doors blow open and Gwen of the Wild Hunt comes in.
Girls just wanna dance.
He is like, Marky Mark, I am so sorry that I doubted you. Thank you for getting my boy Kieran back. As a reward, happy to escort you home. He's like, I got ponies, I got flying motorcycles, I got whatever the fuck you want. Hop in. And so everybody gets this like stunning, beautiful ride through the sky of fairy back to the mundane world. And remember, Emma has kind of done this before. She loves this stuff. So everyone is just having the most wonderful time, which is like very rare in a Shadowhunter book. Julian is having the least amount of fun because, to be fair, he doesn't like horses, but he can't help but notice how beautiful it is. And as he's riding, he thinks with wonder how much his brother Mark must love him to have given all of this up for him. Part 2, Thule. We are at the London Institute. Kit doesn't have anything to report. He's like, it's old. I'm in the library and all of these books have scribbles in it by someone named Will H. And it's just bad vibes. Nobody is doing well, let me say. So the whole family is worried about the older siblings. Ty has had a lot of his like comfort routines messed up, so he's having a really rough time. Drew and Tabby just want to go home and they're just like shuffling to bed angrily when there is a giant bang from the library and Drew runs in, because Drew is always at the scene of the crime. She's got her finger on the pulse of everything. Drew runs in and is like, they're here. Livy jumps up, is like picking up every weapon that she has. She's like, who? And Drew is like, everyone.
Girls just wanna dance.
Yes, indeed. The gang make it back from Fairy and Kit is not surprised. Kit is like, nah, I wasn't worried. Julian Blackthorne's the kind of person who would descend into hell and come out with the devil owing him a favor. So Kit is sort of like, I don't know why we're crying. This was the outcome we were gonna get. But I will say Gwen is with them, and does he immediately go flirt aggressively with Diana? Yes, he does. He is like, hello. Don't know if I made it clear last time. I would like to formally court you. He gives her a list of like all of these traditional fairy courting rituals, and Diana is like, none of those, please. And Gwen is really sad about this, but Diana is like, I mean, you could like buy me flowers or take me to dinner. And Gwen is like, deal. And we love, so that's great for them. But this is a Shadowhunter story, so happiness is short-lived. Julian has to update the kids on Uncle Arthur, which is very sad. The kids have to update him on all of the Zara stuff. Apparently, they tried to tell the Clave about like Malcolm is back, everything is crazy, blah, blah, blah. But apparently Zara beat them to it and told the Clave like, oh, the Centurions are on it. No need to send help. We've got it under control. And the Clave were like, amazing. Thank you, Zara Dearborn. Great work. Diana is going to head to Idris and she's going to try to talk directly to the source. She's going to talk to Gia Penhallow, who remember is like in charge of the Clave, and Gia's daughter, Aline. Aline is married to Helen Blackthorn, who is half Fae. She was banished, right? We're still trying to get Helen back. And so Diana is like, listen, her daughter is married to a half downworlder. If anyone's going to listen, hopefully it will be her. In terms of Zara and this whole registry and like this Nazi anti-downworlder thing that's spreading like a poison, Diana's like, I'm gonna go explain everything to her directly. So that is Diana's plan. Everyone else is like, I guess we're looking for our great aunt Annabelle and that damn black book. So that's what we're gonna do next. Also complicated, but because Kieran doesn't remember anything, Kieran doesn't remember that him and Mark like aren't a couple. So Emma is just like, hey, no biggie guys, but Mark and I have broken up. No hard feelings. We're better friends. It's over. But Mark can't lie, as we know, for very long. So he gives Kieran a pretty edited version of what happened. He's sort of like, listen, we got in a really big fight. I'm still a little bit mad at you. And I also think that being in the real world, it made me think about how our relationship started. He says, I need you and I will always need you, Kieran. But because I've needed you so much, I've never really had a chance to think about whether or not we're good for each other. Because remember, they kind of trauma bonded and Mark is like, I've actually never been around you when I'm not in a traumatic situation. Not that this isn't a traumatic situation, but whatever. He's like, this is as chill as the Shadowhunter life gets, okay? And I need to figure out if I love you for you or if I love you because you were the only thing I could cling to for my sanity in the wild hunt. And Kieran, to his credit, is like, I can't argue with that. He's like, thank you for your honesty. Let's take this slow. I will give you space. They know that they still have feelings for each other and we're gonna figure that out, okay? What are the other couples doing? Oh my God. Remember how I was like, we got a really cute scene. Julian and Emma are friends again. Wrong. No, they're not, because what the fuck, Emma? Julian is so mad that Emma just casually broke up with Mark first of all, in front of all of his siblings. Like all the family was gathered and she was just like, just letting you know, PSA, we're not together anymore. And Julian is like, Mark even looked surprised he didn't look mad, but he looked surprised by this public announcement. They end up alone at some point and he's just like, way to go, Emma, breaking up with 2 different Blackthorn brothers. Who's next? Ty? The second he says that, he's like, ooh, I fucked up. Because Ty is like a little brother to Emma as much as he is to Julian. Emma literally says, screw you, Julian Blackthorn. And she spun on her heel and stomped back up the stairs. Julian immediately feels sick about this. And he was like, it was an out-of-body experience. He was like, it felt like I was watching someone yell at my own Parvati. Like, that wasn't me. I don't know what's going on. He's honestly very scared by his reaction. But the reason why he's so upset is he was like, the whole Parvati being in love thing fucking sucks. But at least when we were in love, I wasn't alone in this hell, right? This horrible situation. And then when Emma got with Mark, I could blame Mark and I could be unhappy in that way. But now that they're broken up, Emma has just decided she would literally rather be with no one than be with me. And Julian just feels rotten to the core. He is lost and tortured and, in his own words, ruined. Then we get a quick scene of Kit getting his first permanent rune. Ty is like, it's about damn time. You have called yourself a Herondale. You are a Shadowhunter. You've already gotten a healing rune. Let's give you a permanent one. And Ty wants to do it. Okay, so Ty is giving him the sight rune, which is usually the first rune that every Shadowhunter gets. And even though Kit has the sight naturally, Ty is like, let's give you this one. Let's start small. It's also the most painful rune. He flexed his fingers, staring at his hand. He'd have this forever. This thing that Ty had put there. He could never erase it or change it. And that's when he's like, okay, I guess I'm part of the gang. He's like, when do we start this investigation of finding Malcolm's house? Because they're like, where are we going to find the Black Book? Where could Annabelle have possibly gone? Malcolm used to live in that little cottage in Cornwall. That's where they want to go. He's like, all right, how are we going to find where his house is? When a girl pops out of nowhere and is just like, oh, I can tell you. He turns around and sees this little blonde girl that was certainly not there before. She is pretty and blonde and translucent. Kit screams.
Hi? Man.
This girl is like, whoa, bud, you are acting like you've never seen a ghost before. And Kit is like, I've never seen a ghost before. What are you talking about? Ty and Livy cannot see who he is talking to. Apparently, Herondales can just naturally see ghosts. That's a Herondale trait because of course it is. And Jessamine is like, the only reason other shadowhunters can't see me is because they're stupid and they haven't practiced. Jessamine, we know her from another series. If you've read a different series in the Shadowhunter books, she's a hard pill to swallow, but we love her. Okay, you'll warm up to her, all right? But she's, blunt. She knows where the cottage is. So Livy and Ty run off to get Julian and be like, hey, easy peasy. We got the first clue. All right. When Kit kind of has a conversation with Jessamine. He's like, hey, how is it to be a ghost? And he also asks her about the afterlife and heaven and, hey, have you seen my dad? But Jessamine is like, nah, man, I don't know what comes after death. She says, Tessa used to come to me all the time and ask if I knew where Will was. But apparently, whoever this Will is, he was happy and at peace. So he crossed over very quickly. And as far as Jessamine goes, she can't see across the river. And she just leaves him with one final word of advice as she's kind of fading away. And she's just like, if you steal anything from the library, I will know and you will regret it. We get the sweetest scene between Livy and Julian. Livy finds him to tell him about the Cornwall thing. And she also is like, and by the way, we know about Uncle Arthur running the Institute. Or more the case, you running the Institute. And Julian looks horrified by this, but Livy is like, no, brother, let me speak. She's like, we are proud of you. Like, we're sorry that you felt like you had to hide this from us, but you are the coolest person I know, the strongest person I know. And this really made me realize this is what I want to do. Like, Livy has always been super protective. Like, that's why she wanted to go to the Scolamonts. She wants to be this warrior because her whole thing is she wants to protect people. That's why she's so protective of Ty, etc. So she's like, I want to run an institute. She's like, I want to be you when I grow up. Not now. God, no, not now. But she's basically like, you're my role model in all things, Julian. And I'm not teasing you because it's quite awkward because Livy and Julian show their love to each other by teasing each other.
When I'm annoyed at Louis, I can't stay annoyed at Louis for very long because he's very lovable.
Puppy dog eyes.
And he doesn't mean it, and he's just sometimes an idiot, but he doesn't mean that. Like, he doesn't mean it. But I do love him.
So this is the first time they've really had like a sincere conversation, and she tries to hug him and they're both like, but it's really sweet, okay? She's like, listen, we're not mad. We're so, so proud. And she kind of excuses herself. Julian lays back in his bed and he's just like, oh my God, they know. He's like, this thing that I've been hiding for like 5 years, everyone knows and they don't hate me. It was a weight off of him that he'd almost forgotten he'd been carrying. And we waste no time. I'm pretty sure the Seelie Queen gave us we have a deadline. I think we've got 2 weeks to do something. Anyway, we're in a rush. All right. So Julian, Emma, and Christina are going to head to Cornwall to try and find Malcolm's book and maybe some kind of remnants of his body. And we get another cute scene. The family were on good terms, okay? Because they're leaving Mark with the kids. And we remember how this went last time. Catastrophic. But Julian is like, no, Mark, I trust you, man. You've got this. And also, this isn't my fucking kitchen. I don't have to clean it. So do your worst. Everyone is on the same page. The Blackthorns are just being kind to each other. Everything is looking good. Will that last? Absolutely not. No, because we get to the train station to get to Cornwall when Tina doubles over in pain and her wrist is bleeding profusely. Let's go back to the fairy realm. Do you remember at the revel when Mark and Christina got tied together and Mark was able to cut that string and they were free and like, woo, dodge that bullet? Would be crazy if that curse had taken hold. Yeah, so Tina just thought it was a coincidence that the scar hadn't faded. So the healing runes aren't doing shit. So they rush her back to the institute and they're trying everything possible to get the bleeding to stop when Mark runs into the infirmary with his wrist bleeding. And they're like, oh no. Yeah, Mark and Christina are stuck together and they really haven't had a conversation since that kiss after the revel. So... And now Julian and Emma, who are also not on speaking terms because they just had a big fight, have to go on this mission alone. So Cassie Clare, I'm so tired.
I might not go back in. I'm gonna go home, actually.
But to be completely fair to Julian and Emma, on the train, they have a very frank conversation with each other. Julian explains how he is feeling. Emma, once again, is like, we've got to be friends or I will die. So they aren't healed, but they at least manage to have some jokes on this little road trip. They also are just a wonderful team. They always work so well together. So it takes them literally no time. I'm going to totally skip over this scene because it takes 2 pages. They get to Cornwall. They find lunch, they ask a few questions, and boom, they have the address to the cottage. Okay, Jessamine was like, it's vaguely in this town, and Julian and Emma get the exact location in no time at all. So off we go to Malcolm's home in Cornwall, and we are at 50%. Nothing good ever comes when the gang splits up this much, so... strap in. Back at the Institute with Mark and Christina, Kieran is immediately suspicious. He is like, did you guys plan this? And Mark is like, did we plan to spray our blood all over London? Kieran, let's think about this. Because remember, Kieran's last memory is spying on Mark and Tina having like a cozy moment in the kitchen. So he's got some territorial issues he has to deal with. And this is when Mark and Christina decide it's not fair to keep him in the dark. We've got to tell him what actually happened. He like runs off, and before they go to go talk to him, Mark says something sweet. He kind of looks down at their matching scars and he laughs. He's like, it's almost like a punchline to a joke because even before this, it hurt me to be away from you. Oh, Marky Mark. So anyway, Tina decides she's going to talk to Kieran because there's like some fire between Mark and Kieran right now. Tina's kind of relatively neutral. So she ends up not fully telling him what happened actually, but she is her normal, gracious, gorgeous, lovely, kind self. And Kieran apologizes pretty immediately. He is like, I'm sorry, you are literally the nicest person I've ever met. I don't know why I'm such an asshole to you. And I swore my loyalty to you. So my bad. Okay. He also says, I want to thank you for being the only person who seems to understand Mark and I. And then of course there's an earth-shattering boom. Again, Mark runs in and he is like, you are not gonna believe who just portaled into the library. Also, Mark, aren't you supposed to be watching the kids? Where are the kids? Yeah, Livy, Ty, and Kit have gotten permission. They are allowed to be doing this. They are going to Blackthorn Manor. So everybody is in the Institute, but the Blackthorns actually have a home in London. Must be nice. So they're gonna go there to look for any clues about Annabelle. When they get there, Ty draws this really cool rune on the big entry gates and Kit is like, ooh, what does that do? And when the gate swings open, Ty just turns and he's like, opens things.
It's the one and only Digo Double G.
There was something frightening and thrilling all at once at being the focus of Tiberius's gaze. Kit is like, So the open rune works on the gate, doesn't work on the front door. So they start looking around for another way in when Kit finds a door that Livy and Ty couldn't see until he pointed it out, which means that it likely had a glamour on it, which I feel like can't be good, but whatever. So they go in. We got to get into this house. It's a door. We'll question things later. All right, they go in, head to the library, look for any clues. Eventually, they find these weird crystals in the library, and Ty seems to recognize them. These are crystals that have been known to hold memories, like you can store memories in them, but nobody knows how to use them. So they're kind of like, all right, it's a half clue. There seems to be nothing else in this creepy house. Let's maybe bring it back to the Institute. Like they're feeling a little bit like this wasn't the jackpot of a mission that they thought it was going to be, when Kit is like, well, we might not know how to open it, but I know where we would find someone who could. The shadow market. Kit is like, any excuse to go back to the shadow market. Let's go. Meanwhile, at a different kind of market, Julian and Emma, they just came back from the grocery store. They're basically just like setting up shop. They get to Malcolm's cottage. It's empty. They move in. They're stocking the fridge. They're dusting the windows, you know, making themselves at home. Apparently, Emma wanders off for a little bit, and when she comes back, Julian has a smudge of black on his face, and he's holding 2 cups of tea. She realizes the smudge is ash to make a fire. She pictured him kneeling here, starting a fire for them, patient and thoughtful, and felt a wave of overwhelming tenderness for him. This is the start of a little bit of domestic bliss that is not gonna go well, but we'll let them have this moment, okay? And because they're the dream team, they find a clue immediately. They're just like looking through, the cottage is pretty small, all right? They don't have far to look. They're looking around and they stumble upon a sketchbook because Annabelle was an artist. They find a lot of sketches, plenty of portraits of Malcolm, and they also find, most importantly, I would say, Malcolm's diaries from when he was like a little kid. And so how did Malcolm and Annabelle even come to know each other? Let's find out. Apparently, the Blackthorns found him when he was like 8 years old. He was alone and confused. He didn't even know what a warlock was. And the Blackthorns took him in, basically adopted him as like a ward because they thought having a warlock would be really handy. They were like, ooh, almost treated him as a pet, you know? These Blackthorns, you will find, this family sucks, okay? Every family's got one. The one little bit of family that is absolutely horrible, yeah, Annabelle's family is that family, okay? But Annabelle isn't. Annabelle immediately was so kind to Malcolm. They're very close in age, and he pretty much immediately fell in love with her. And speaking of Annabelle, at this point, they've been reading the diaries out loud. Emma has fallen asleep when there's a knock at the door. Julian, who's getting wise about asking for identities before he does anything, he's like, who is it? And the voice says, I'm looking for Julian Blackthorn. He opens the door, and who is standing there but Annabelle herself? The younger kids have made it to the shadow market, and we're at the shadow market in London, not LA. So Kit doesn't have connections here, but he can still name drop. And this honestly might be safer, right? So he's like, hello, I know Barnabas Hale, the owner of the LA shadow market. We need to talk to a warlock ASAP. And pretty much with the snap of his fingers, a warlock appears. He is this creepy hooded figure that is like, hello. They explained the crystal thing and he's like, absolutely, I can help you. Come to my tent. What are we supposed to do when a scary hooded stranger is like, follow me into this secluded place where no one knows where you are and no one can hear you scream? We're supposed to say no. Livy, Ty, and Kit say, absolutely yes. So we follow him into the tent. We can see that he has green skin. That's all we got. And true to his word, though, he helps them out. He shows them what's in the crystal. There are apparently 2 memories, and they show up as if it's like a beam projector onto the side of the tent, okay? So the first memory we see is Annabelle. Annabelle, as she is younger, looks exactly like Livy, which freaks Ty the fuck out because everything that's happening to Annabelle, it looks like it's happening to Livy, okay? Basically, she is on trial. She is tied to a chair and being questioned for her crimes. What are her crimes? Apparently, Malcolm Fade stole the legendary Black Book of the Dead from the London Institute, and Annabelle helped him. And on top of that, the person questioning her says that Malcolm has disappeared, leaving Annabelle the only person to answer for these crimes, okay? And that's weird because Malcolm loves Annabelle. He wouldn't just abandon her, okay? But apparently her crimes will be forgiven if she just tells them where Malcolm is. But we know that that's not true because in the same breath, these people are like, you've tainted yourself by loving a downworlder, so you will never live the life of a shadow hunter again. So what's the point of her telling you? whatever. So we get that scene. It is followed swiftly by another memory much later where we get a different story than what we were told. So according to legend, or according to the kind of fairy tale that we know, Annabelle was sent to live with the Iron Sisters, and she basically died of sadness within their citadel, or whatever it's called. Wrong. She was sentenced to go live with the Iron Sisters, but she never made it there because her own family, so ashamed of their daughter for falling in love with a downworlder, killed her. And for some reason, Malcolm came out of hiding and is now working with the shadowhunters. He is doing anything they ask, basically. He's being so helpful. Why? Because he thinks that Annabelle is missing, and he thinks that him cooperating will help them find her. The Inquisitor knows Annabelle is dead, but he is like, this is amazing. We've got this guy working for us. Let's just keep up the ruse that she's missing and that we're looking for her. What is that Inquisitor's name? Inquisitor Dearborn. All right, so the plot thickens. We've got the same players playing the same shitty game. Also, Kit is quite shaken by the fact that in the second memory, there is a Herondale, like a shitty Herondale. He's like, I thought I was from this great family with such a wonderful lineage and we're stunningly good looking. But every family has really shitty people, and the Herondales are not immune. But that's all the memories that they get because someone is shouting for Kit from outside of the tent. And who is it? But Barnabas Hale. He's like, hey, so I heard you were name dropping. Thought I'd check on why. And remember, Barnabas has said under no circumstances can Kit Herondale ever come back to the Shadow Market. So he is not like a goofy, kind of happy-go-lucky warlock like Magnus is, or like Malcolm kind of pretended to be. He's mean. He's a bully, okay? So he immediately is like, gather round, folks. Look what we have here. Some Shadowhunter children to make an example of, because Shadowhunters have been messing with downworlders. We have seen them killing them, locking them up, treating us unfairly, walking all over us. What if we left some broken and bruised bodies of their children on their doorstep? How does that sound? And the crowd goes wild, and a bunch of like werewolves and vampires descend on the kids. Luckily though, the patrons of the Shadow Market were not aware that Livy and Ty and Kit can fight. Even without his like training, Kit has street smarts, so he just immediately throws a dagger at Barnabas. They are relatively holding their own when, thank God, there's like a pop of blue smoke and Magnus arrives. He's like, it's always a fucking Herondale at the scene of the crime. Here I am. Everybody back off. Leave them alone. Okay? And even though they were holding their own, it seems that Livy has gotten stabbed pretty horribly in that last moment. She is bleeding out, not looking good. So we've got to get her to the Institute ASAP. No time to chat. He's basically like, hey, Shadow Market, fuck you. Kids, portal, okay? He opens one to get us back to the Institute. Ty puts on his headphones and runs to the other side of the market, because I didn't mention this, but when they got there, he was quite freaked out by the cages full of pixies and other small magical animals. He does not like small, helpless things in cages. So he literally just puts on his headphones, sets everything free. Chaos erupts in the Shadow Market. There was already chaos, but even more. So he just like goes through the motions, sets everybody free, runs back, and all three of them jump into the whirlwind of the portal. But now what is Annabelle doing in Cornwall? She is here to gossip.
Gossip girl here, and I have the biggest news ever.
This is a really random scene. I don't know why she showed up, to be honest. I think she was just lonely, or maybe she like wanted to check on her old house. I don't know. But she's just dropping some lore. Okay, thank you, Annabelle. What is she telling Julian? So apparently she doesn't actually remember how she died, which is maybe a blessing, but she knows that when she got her consciousness back and she learned what Malcolm was doing, she wasn't too pleased. Apparently, it was the Unseelie King himself that gave Malcolm the idea to use the Black Book to bring Annabelle back. And in exchange for this information, Malcolm had to help the Unseelie King do a couple of things, including making Shadowhunter powers weaker. So that's why when they got to the Unseelie court, their runes wouldn't work, their blades wouldn't work, but in the Seelie court they did. That was because of Malcolm. Okay, so he's been working with the Fae for a long time. And Annabelle's like, I don't like that. I don't like that. Okay. But crazier still, I think the reason why Annabelle is like totally insane at this point is because when Malcolm tried the first time, remember that's how he killed Emma's parents, is he tried to do the spell and he like got something wrong. Okay. Turns out he kind of got it right. He woke Annabelle up, like her brain, her soul, but her body was still dead. So she was underground in her coffin, alive, screaming without being able to move her lips for 5 years. So you can see how one might lose their mind and be a little bit pissed at the person who's trying to wake them up, okay? That's why, like, no hesitation, the second she got her body back, she killed Malcolm, deserved, all right? But speaking of the book, why don't you just hand it over? We can wrap up this book real sweetly. Let's get it done. And Annabelle is just like, sorry. No can do. She actually says sorry almost dismissively, as if the word has no meaning for her. Because she's like, there is going to be a war between the Fae and the Shadowhunters, inevitable, okay? And the only thing that this black book does is evil. It causes pain, it causes suffering. You don't need it, I don't need it. Forget about it. And then Emma must have woken up and she comes outside and Annabelle just disappears. So great that we got more information, but also what was that, Annabelle? Julian is like, thanks. Bye. But back at the Institute, we get actually a really sweet scene between Ty and Kit. Basically, even though Magnus is certain that Livy will heal, she actually got stabbed with something quite poisonous. So she is in really bad shape. And Ty is upset because if he were her Parvati, she could heal faster. Like, remember, people who have Parvati, they share strength and everything. So if they get injured, if he were to draw a healing rune on her, that healing rune would be more powerful, right? So I didn't really mention this, but it's every single time they are in a scene together, Livy is asking Ty to become her Parvati. She has been asking since birth, came out of the womb and was like, I want to be a Parvati with my twin. The only issue is Livy's the protector. Livy's the warrior, the fighter. She wants to be in battle on the front lines. Ty doesn't like violence. He's like, I want to be in the library. I want to be solving crimes. I want to be reading books. I will not be the Parvati that fights next to you like you want me to be. And he's just like denied her for years. But in this moment, he's like, fuck, if I had just said yes, she wouldn't be in so much pain, you know? And he's really freaking out. At this point, they're on the roof. He's like in the fetal position. Apparently he is on the ground, breathing hard, rocking back and forth. And Kit is going through everything he's ever read online about like, how is he supposed to help in a situation like this? And he's like, you know who knows? Ty. So he just asks him, he's like, Ty, tell me. Tell me what to do. And Ty is just like, can you just hold me for a second? Ty felt hot and sharp in his arms and he was vibrating with some strange emotion. And after what felt like a long time, he relaxed slightly, but said, tighter. And Kit isn't really a hugger. He's not really a touchy-feely kind of person, but he remembers that Livy had told him about how like pressure is very grounding for Ty. And so Kit is like, get over yourself, Kit. Like this, we're not cuddling. I'm just helping a friend get through something really scary. So sure enough, he holds on to Ty more tightly than he'd ever held anyone. Held him as if they'd been lost at sea, and only holding on to each other could keep them afloat. But something good has got to be happening to somebody out there. Maybe? Yes, Diana. She's in Idris. She's been having long conversations with Gia because remember, Gia, who is the head of the Shadowhunters, might have some say in stopping this rising fascist, racist political movement that's going on, okay? Turns out Zara, she's been sending back reports for the Centurions, like what's going on in LA, making her lies like an art. Truly, like the audacity. She sent this whole report about how Zara vanquished Malcolm Fade and killed him in this victorious battle that they had. And all the Centurions signed it as witnesses. And Diana is just like, these fucking kids. She is so pissed. And Gia is basically like, I can't do much. She's like, the only reason I'm staying in this position instead of going off into the woods to wallow in pity over what the Shadowhunters are becoming is because I know anyone who takes my place will be worse and we will fall to pieces. So I'm literally just here I'm the last piece of the dam trying to stop this onslaught of nonsense, right? So we're feeling rather helpless. Diana is like tossing and turning in bed, going over the events of the past few days when she hears a knock at her window and she peeks out.
Girls just wanna dance.
Gwen is standing outside of her window. He calls up. He's like, "Oh, my fair lady. Thank goodness I caught you. Are you busy?" Diana's like, "No." "You're calling on me in the middle of the night." "No, I'm not busy." And Gwen is like, "Oh, well, you're dressed in such beautiful silks. I thought you had somewhere to be." And Diana looks down. She's wearing pajamas. She's like, "I mean, they are my nicest pair, but what do you mean?" But Diana's like, "You know what? I've been dealing with shitty teenagers for way too long. I need to burn off some steam. Getting on the back of a hot ferryman's horse and flying off into the night sounds like exactly what I need. You go, girl." Now we're having breakfast at the London Institute and we have some new faces. So Magnus and Alec finally arrived. And this has been a few years since the Mortal Instruments series. They have adopted 2 sons. They have a small blue warlock named Max, and one is a little brown-eyed child named Rafe. And everyone's doing pretty okay. Livy has gotten back to full health. Ty is kind of okay now that Livy is okay. Christina and Mark are stuck sitting together, but honestly, for either of them, that's not really a trial. Kieran is MIA currently. And then I didn't mention her because she's a pain in the ass and she's just like this racist old lady. The head of the London Institute is one of the Blackthorn's like great aunts or something. Her name's Evelyn. She was just in there to be really annoying, and honestly this book is super long, so I needed to cut somebody out. Evelyn is gone. Evelyn's like sick of the shit going down and she has excused herself. So Magnus and Alec are in charge of the London Institute, and Magnus is trying to explain this to the Blackthorn kids, and he's like, "Yes, Evelyn has left us and Alex is in charge of the institute now." And immediately Drew is like, "Evelyn died?" And Magnus is like, no, I just mean that she went to the countryside home to live out the rest of her days." And meanwhile, Kit is like, "Isn't that what everybody says about the family dog that goes out to the countryside and really it's dead?" And Drew is like, "Oh my God, Evelyn died." We are descending into chaos, and Alec is just sitting back in his seat so Magnus can't see him, just like hiding his face with laughter. The gang is back together. But speaking of Drew, she is having a horrible time. She has been stuck for the entirety of this book pretty much, and especially since they got to London, babysitting Tavi. That is her entire job. And no one really asked her. This was just thrust upon her, okay? And it used to be that the 3 of them, Livy, Ty, and Drew, were kind of stuck watching Tavi, but now they're out with Kit doing cool stuff. And Drew is just like this 13-year-old girl stuck with a 7-year-old boy day in and day out. She's not having a good time, which is why she is hiding in the library. She's like under one of the desks just to like have a moment to herself. When she hears someone come in and they trip over something and they curse in Spanish, and it's a man's voice. So Drew is immediately like, "Oh my God, Perfect Diego is here." And she has a big old crush on Perfect Diego because Perfect Diego is perfect.
Now over here.
Oh my God.
So she rolls out from under the desk and they both scream because for Drew, it's not Diego. And for the person it is, they were not expecting a 13-year-old girl to just like spring out of nowhere. Who is it though? Sure looks like Diego, actually, on second glance. And Drew puts it together right away. She's like, "Okay, almost Diego, but not quite. You must be Jaime." She introduces herself and immediately Jaime turns on the charm. He's like, "Oh, what a pretty name for such a pretty girl." And remember, Drew is very insecure. We've talked about this in the last book. She's going through puberty. She's got body image issues. So for someone very cute to be calling her very pretty, she's like, "All right, tell me more." But he's like, "I'm actually so glad that I found you because Christina, Diego, and I need your help." And he says something weird. He's like, "I'm sure Christina has told you all these really horrible things about me." And Drew is like, "Actually, Tina doesn't really talk about you." I haven't really heard anything. And Jaime seems a little bit let down about that. And I'm thinking that's a great mark of Tina's character, that she doesn't talk shit about someone, even if they did something bad to her. Jaime is like, oh, she doesn't talk about me at all? But basically he needs Drew's help to hide because no one else can know that he's here until he can talk to Tina. And Tina is currently MIA. She went off to do something. So can Drew hide him? And while he's not as perfect as Diego, he has a blinding smile, and Drew thinks she would help him with just about anything. But now let's go back to what we really care about, which is Gwen and Diana's date.
Girls just wanna dance.
It is going well. They fly to this beautiful forest. They have a wonderful picnic, and Diana famously does not share things about her life, but for some reason she feels very safe with Gwen. They end up having just a really great conversation, but the mood kind of sours because they're talking sort of about their previous love lives, and Diana's like, don't really have one to speak of. And Gwen says, like, that's such a bummer because he thinks it would, quote, be a tremendous honor to be loved by you. Diana immediately is kind of like, that's a bold claim. Like, you don't know me. I think this is, Diana puts up a lot of walls. Okay, this is her putting up a wall. She's like, yeah, you don't know me. And Gwen is like, I think I do. He says, I saw who you are, your bravery. And he's talking about all of the times he's witnessed Diana kick ass and stand up for all of the kids that she loves. But for some reason, that I saw who you are phrase really makes Diana just shut down. She gets up from the picnic blanket, is like about to ask him to fly her back home because she's done with this, when they notice a small part of the forest that looks burnt by acid. Gwen comes up behind her and sees it too, and he's like, uh-oh. I've only seen this in fairy. This is a great blight. It's the mark of a dark magic. So now we've got more bad news to share, likely with Gia Penhallow, that whatever dark magical blight that has been spreading in fairy, it's made it to the mortal realm. Now we're on a quick little mission with Livy, Ty, and Kit. Ty is so excited because this is pure like Sherlock Holmes shit, okay? They're going around the city trying to pick up clues. Livy's excited because she gets to bring weapons along, and Kit just likes to be involved, okay? If you're wondering if there's any weird tension, because remember Kit and Livy kissed a couple pages ago? Nah. No, it seems like Livy just wanted a first kiss and picked a nice boy, and Kit was there, and Kit is like, you know what? Yeah, one kiss was enough for me. Like, so no weird tension. However, we get two very important pieces of information from Livy. They are going into a shop, and she kind of pulls Kit outside of it. Ty can handle this. She's like, he's got it. I need to talk to you. First, very important piece of information that Livy shares is that she says, you know, Ty uses the headphones less when you're around. And Kit is like, is that a good or a bad thing? And Livy's like, I don't know. She kind of shrugs. She's like, I don't think it's good or bad. I just noticed it. And says, I just think he doesn't want to miss anything that you say. And Kit feels this weird emotion go through him. Different than when he kissed Livy, let's just say. So that's kind of like a neutral / sweet moment. And then Livy gets fire in her eyes. She's like, but if you're gonna be friends with my brother, you'd better be fucking serious about it. Because apparently in school and stuff like that, Ty has had a lot of people befriend him, but they're really just kind of making fun of him, or they're not being actually really nice to him. Livy's like, none of that, okay? She's like, if you're gonna be friends with him, be fucking friends with him, or you can leave.
That my best friend, she a real bad bitch.
Before Kit can even answer, because he's honestly stunned, Livy can be very scary. Kit is just like, Ty comes out of the shop, and he kind of just like puts his hood up and he's like, let's go. We got the goods. They were picking up some things for Magnus, okay? So Livy is drawing the line. She is like, my brother always, if you fuck this up, if you make him cry, you will learn about a new circle of hell. Meanwhile, Julian is living in a new circle of hell. I feel like people who are very loyal to this book might think that I'm skipping a lot, but basically Julian and Emma, they are just going through a checklist of tasks with no problem. Like, they find one clue and then that leads them to the next thing, and then without any issues, they solve the next. They're just breezing through everything that life throws at them, okay? So they basically found that the reason that Annabelle knew that Julian was at the cottage is because she has a network of piskies, which are like a kind of small fairy. And so Julian and Emma were like, well, maybe we can go talk to them and they'll give us some information. They do. The fairies give them information immediately, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So skipping that, Emma was very excited she wanted to take selfies with the fairies. They're like that big. The information we got is that Annabelle is hiding out in a church that's nearby, but unfortunately for them, it's Sunday and they need some privacy in the church. So they're gonna wait until Monday to do this. So they just have like one day to kill in the cottage. They're just hanging out, reading the diaries. Julian's making grilled cheese. It's lovely. And Julian is like, I hate this.
Another glorious morning. Makes me sick.
He says he can just imagine doing this every day. He's like, I could live in this cottage looking out at the ocean. I would have an art studio. Emma would have a training room. I'd wake up every morning beside her and we'd share breakfast at this table. And a wave of desire, not for the physicality of her, but for the dream of that life, swept through him, almost choking him. It's dangerous to dream, he reminded himself. They're just having a really cute time, and apparently a bubble of happiness was swelling in his chest, sweet and unfamiliar at these completely ordinary moments. Everything he'd ever wanted and never let himself imagine. A house, Emma, laughing by the fire together. At first, he was kind of nervous that if Christina didn't come, if it was just them, it would be really awkward. But now it's totally not awkward, and that makes it almost worse. So, like I said, domestic bliss, it's killing them slowly. But don't worry, we quickly move from domestic bliss into an actual horror movie. This scene is very long and very scary. So it's Monday, time to go to the church. As they're walking there, they're talking about like the history of this particular church and graveyard and everything. We get a fun little nugget that apparently warlocks run Wikipedia. So can it really be trusted? We don't know. But anyway, we get into the church, and waiting for us in there is a note addressed to Julian. And when he opens it, it's from Annabelle.
Gossip girl here, and I have the biggest news ever.
And she's basically like, hey kid, if you're reading this, you failed my test. Because remember, when she talked to him, she was like, nobody's touching the book. Forget about it. Don't follow me. Don't call me. And so she talked to her piskies, the little fairy things, and told them to give Julian false information. So the fact that he came here is proof that he did try to find Annabelle. As punishment, she's going to show him, give him a little taste of what the Black Book has to offer. And that's when they hear this really gross, like, I don't even want to make these sounds into this microphone, but basically they come face to face with this blob of blood, and that's really it. Like, it's just like a big blood blister, but it also has like one little talon and maybe a mouth. It's okay. Just picture something gross. All right. It introduces itself as Subnock of Thule, bridge we will cross later. And the first thing he says to Emma, without eyes, he kind of like turns to her and is like, ugh, what is this ugly human standing before me? And Emma's like, ouch, that was a little personal. Damn, we just met. To which the blob is like, I do not understand your words. And Emma's like, it's okay. It's a curse being this sarcastic. Anyway, and she stabs it with the Cortana. We get a fight. It's very difficult to kill something that is just like a bubble of blood. I don't know. So they're having a really disgusting battle. The church is like dripping in blood. It is truly a scene from a horror movie. When all of a sudden there's this beam of light from directly above, and Emma is like, God? Wrong. It's Julian. Julian somehow cut a hole in the church, and he jumps down from the rafters, like directly on top of this blood blister. And all Emma can think is like, bad ass. It does look cool. Julian does have a lot of really cool, he likes to jump, whether it was the Ferris wheel or from the roof. You can see how they get along. Emma also likes to jump off of high things. Anyway, I digress. Basically, Julian manages to kill the blood demon, and when he should be like getting up covered in blood looking all cool because of that move that he just pulled, he looks very scared because Emma didn't really notice in the heat of the battle, but she got cut by one of the blood thing's tooth talons, and she is bleeding profusely. So this is not good. Emma's not ever supposed to get hurt. So Julian storms out of that church, finds the piskies again, and grabs one of them and is just screaming at it because they gave him false information that led to Emma getting hurt. He's being really scary to the point where Emma is like, whoa, I've never seen him act like this. This is beyond, like, he's threatening to kill all the Piskies. Bad news. His temper is really freaking Emma out, but eventually, mainly because Emma's screaming at him, he lets them go. No harm done, and they go home. But not before Julian burns down the church. Now, partially, I feel like that's just him being like dramatic and angry. But also, how were they going to explain a church that was covered in demon blood when the people came in for the next mass? You know, I understand, but put a pin in that. Julian's got anger issues real bad. But you know who else is in Cornwall? And should they be? I do not think so. Basically, when Ty stayed in the shop a little bit later, when Livy took Kit outside to threaten him, Ty stayed in the shop a little bit later because he had some questions for the shop owner. Basically, his new line of inquiry is how did Malcolm and Annabelle stay in contact way back when, and when they were separated and all of these things? Apparently they used ravens, and Ty is like, I don't know. Something sounds off about that. That doesn't sound as reliable as what Malcolm and Annabelle could come up with. So, sure enough, he finds out that there is an unregulated portal in London that takes you directly to Cornwall, and that's how they communicated. And so Ty is like, Kit, you ready? My Watson, let's go. We got to investigate this. And they're not telling Livy because last time they went on an adventure like this, Livy got hurt and Ty freaked out, and he's still freaked out and really blames himself. So he's like, you and me, bud, let's go. So these two 15-year-old boys get in an unregulated portal without telling anyone and just hope for the best. Poor Mark. Mark, again, is allegedly watching these children. But speaking of Mark, what is Mark doing when he's not watching these kids? So the curse is just kind of getting worse. Mark isn't able to sleep, and he immediately is just like, I need to be near Christina. Like, this isn't going well. I need to be near Christina. I'm in pain, can't sleep. So he ends up wandering down to the ballroom where, of course, Christina already is. The bond just keeps pushing them together. Christina, same story. Couldn't sleep, felt like coming down here because apparently her mother loves to dance, and the London Institute has like a world famous ballroom. So she's checking it out, kind of a little bit homesick. When Mark pulls the cringiest line, he's basically like, wanna dance? And Tina's like, there's no music. And Mark is like, we don't need any. No one can deliver that line without making me cringe. I promise you that. Not even Mark. And Tina as well is like, ew. And she whips out something. I don't know. This is 2017. Did they have Bluetooth speakers? Anyway, she has something where she is playing music, and she's not playing a slow dance. All right. This girl wants to boogie. So she has like a bumpin' track. They start dancing and they're having a great time. And eventually, you guessed it, he kisses her. And I had just skipped over this, but Kieran has a weird power where he can manipulate dreams, and he knows that Mark is hiding something from him. Because again, Mark and Christina keep saying like, oh, we're going to tell Kieran what happened, but they still haven't. Kieran is picking up on that vibe. So he thought he could sneak into Mark's brain in his dream to like get some answers out of him. But instead they just have a little moment. Okay. So Mark has been caught in between his two loves. Okay. While Kieran is starlight and strangeness, he loves Tina because she's human. She's right here and right now. But then she freezes. And for a moment he's scared because like maybe she's like, I actually don't like Mark. That's always, he has such little confidence for such a perfect guy. First he's like, uh-oh, what did I do? But she's looking over his shoulder to the doorway of the ballroom. And who is it but Kieran? And Mark is like, oh, yeah, because this night couldn't get any worse. But instead of being angry, Kieran comes closer and is like, honey, did no one teach you how to dance? And he just steals Tina. Mark ends up just leaning on the wall of the ballroom, watching them have a great time. And he's just like, what is happening? Fast forward a little later and we are with Christina in the library, and she looks out the window and sees Kieran heading out of the institute, and he's allowed to do this. He's not prisoner in the Institute. It's just weird. This is the first time he's chosen to do it. So Tina's like, you know what? Wouldn't hurt to follow him out. So off she trots, follows him at a distance when he gets to a park. And he is there meeting a Daon, who is for all intents and purposes, the best fairy prince. Okay, he's the one that the Seelie Queen wants to put on the throne. He seems like the least bloodthirsty, evil, twisted. Okay, so we're chatting, and Kieran isn't asking about official fae business. He's asking about binding spells. He's basically like, hey, older brother, so hypothetically speaking, if someone I loved were to have had a binding spell put on them, how would I break that? Okay, so he's asking about Mark. However, fairies really don't like being eavesdropped upon. So Tina, out of the blue, feels a dagger on her throat, and it's fucking Eric, that icky prince that we don't like. The prince who was really mean to Julian, but then Julian kidnapped him, basically. He's holding a grudge, okay? He doesn't like shadowhunters extra because they hurt his pride, and he would love a chance to spill some blood tonight. So he pushes her out into the clearing where Kieran and Daon can see her. And he's basically like, Kieran, you've been acting real shady. You've been hanging out with shadowhunters too much. I do not believe that you are loyal to the Fae like you say you are. And the only way I'm gonna believe you and we aren't gonna kill you on sight is if you kill this shadowhunter and prove that you don't give a shit about them, as you should, because you are a Fae, not a shadowhunter, okay? Kieran looks at Tina, looks at Eric, looks at Daon, and without a word, takes out his knife and stabs Eric. He kills his brother instead of killing Tina, okay? Tina is just standing there like, Daon is like, brother, what the fuck was that? And Kieran seems like he didn't even really register what he was doing. He was just like, he was gonna kill her, and she's my, and Mark, and finish a sentence, Kieran. I dare you. Okay? He can't in this book. Just a fun fact. And they just walk off back to the Institute together. Daon's like, okay, I'm out. Luckily for Kieran, fairies are very okay with violence, or used to violence. So this was just more of a whoa, bummer kind of thing, that he killed one of his brothers. So Daon's like, we will talk later. See ya. And Kieran and Christina head back to the Institute, and they have an honest conversation about this whole dynamic that's been going on. Remember, it was earlier that night that they had been dancing all together. And Tina actually, let me read to you exactly what I said. Apparently, after a moment of hesitation, Tina is having the time of her life dancing with Kieran, and Mark can't help but notice that Tina and Kieran looked like stars whirling together. And when they finally stopped, both out of breath, they looked almost shocked at how fun it was. So all three of them really love being together, but so far they haven't worked out how to be three together. I hope some of you listening are excited for what's about to come, for what Cassandra Clare was brave enough to do, that all other fantasy writers they refuse to go there, and it is so sad. So yeah, Kieran is like, listen, I know Mark, and I can tell he apparently, quote, more than desires Tina. So this isn't lust for Mark, okay? And Tina's like, I'm sorry? What are you supposed to do? Obviously, Kieran and Mark had a history before Tina and Mark did. And Kieran's like, you know what? I was mad for all of 5 seconds, and then I met you. And he's like, I get it. I can't fault him. He's like, you're kind, you're gentle, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're everything we know Tina to be, okay? And Kieran is like, but most importantly, you're kind, and Mark needs someone who's kind. And remember, that was kind of Mark's whole issue with Kieran and his relationship is I don't know if we were nice to each other. We're kind of we trauma bonded, but do we really like each other? So Kieran kind of gives Tina his blessing because he knows, he loves Mark enough to know that Mark also loves Tina. So that's conversation we'll finish another day. But Kieran is like, we got to talk to the adults. So we get Mark, we get Alec, and he's basically like, listen, the Fae know about the Black Book. The Unseelie court knows that the Seelie court is looking for the Black Book. They know the Blackthorns are looking for it. He says, I know we're safe in the Institute, but we should not be leaving these walls for the foreseeable future. They've got it out for the Blackthorns. And great, awesome, let's just stay in the Institute, except, oh no, Livy, Ty, and Kit are outside. Remember how they went to the shop to do some shopping? So they placed an order. Now they have to go pick up the stuff. Okay, so they're out again. They're having a great time. Ty and Kit just like checked out the portal. Okay, they didn't get up to any funny business. They're having like a cute time. They're 15. They're freely walking around London. It's like a moody, romantic, rainy day. They're crossing the Millennium Bridge when a bunch of horses come out of the sky. And Kit is like sick. The Wild Hunt. We know those guys. Honestly, as a 15-year-old dude, if like a bunch of cool ass fairies show up on flying horses and they could be like, hey Kit, what's up? I don't think I would recover. That would be the highlight of my life. So Kit is very much like, oh, this is a cool thing. When Livy is like, it's daytime. The Wild Hunt comes out at night and they're heading right for us and they don't look friendly. Yeah, that's not Gwen. Those are bad news fairies, aka the Riders of Manon, murderous assassins of the Unseelie Court, also known as the King's Hounds. Okay, and Mark, once Kieran tells him what's going on, they pretty much know who would the Unseelie King send. Those motherfuckers. So Mark is very scared for his kids and he's freaking out because like he's convinced this wouldn't have happened if Julian were here, right? Remember last time? Nobody really got harmed. Sure, Ty snuck out, but like the worst thing that happened was Tavi got covered in sugar and the kitchen was dirty. This time Livy, Ty, and Kit might be killed by the Fae. So Mark is like, oh no, the kids who are currently being attacked by the Riders of Manon, they pull up and they're basically like, hey, so either you tell us where the Black Book is or we take you as hostages until we find where the Black Book is. And these kids aren't kidding. They don't know. No one knows. We're still looking for it. The Fae are convinced that we already have it. Okay, their information is wrong. So Livy, Ty, and Kit looks like they're going for a ride that they did not ask for. And everyone's scrambling to find them, but they left the Los Angeles Institute so quickly. They literally left with the clothes on their back. So Magnus is trying to make some kind of tracking spell, but they don't have enough items of theirs that like have their essence that they could use as a tracking spell. So we're fucked. Mark panics and he reaches into his pocket to take out a golden acorn. So remember how Gwen gave Diana that golden acorn and Mark was like, sick, you can call him when you're in trouble? Diana gave it to Mark. She was basically like, at that time, she was like, ooh, I don't think I'm going to use that one. So Mark cracks it open and true to his word in like a split second, girls just want to dance. Gwen is there and he looks so crestfallen that it is Mark in front of him and not his hot girlfriend. He is like, ew, why did you call me? Mark catches him up and Gwen, this is a reminder that Gwen is an immortal fairy who works within the Wild Hunt, which is like this ruthless, terrifying, slightly insane thing, okay? So his take on the situation when Mark is like, my siblings are taken and gonna be killed, Gwen's first reaction is like, I don't know, bud, kids die all the time. He's sort of like, life is hard, man, especially for you mortals, and I don't really want to get involved. Like, I'm a neutral party, I told you, that's why I didn't go rescue Kieran. And he's kind of backing out of this. But Tina, the brains of the whole book, remembers that Fae really love compliments. So she turns on the Rosala's charm and is like, but Gwen, I heard you were the best seeker of all time. We can't find them, but we know no one in this world or the next would be able to find them other than you. Are you saying the Riders of Manon could best you? Could they hide somewhere that you couldn't find? She's laying it on thick. And Mark and Kieran are like, Kieran like leans to Mark and he's like, damn, she is good. And Mark is literally like, yeah, Tina's the best. He says, she might be gentle and honest, but she is astonishingly capable of playing fairy tricks if necessary. We love Tina. We love Tina. Thesis statement of the book. And Gwen, his eyes like glaze over. He is like, tell me more. Tell me how great I am. He agrees. He's like, you're right, girl. I am the best at this. Let me show you. So Gwen is going to go find the kids. Magnus is trying to open a portal because Julian and Emma aren't answering their phones. And we'd really like to get them on the phone right now. So, off we go in different directions to try and get everybody back together. Where are Julian and Emma? All right, so I lied, or I withheld some information, because when I said Julian set a church on fire, that's omitting some pretty big details. So Julian is like trying to set it on fire, but burning a big building like this takes time. So he asks Emma for help. And remember, when Parvati work together, their spells are stronger. So he was like, we can just like burn this building really quickly, right? So they do that, and what should have just been like sort of like a little flamethrower action happening. Yeah, it was as if a bomb went off. The church went up in a ball of fire. Their magic was way too strong. And remember, Julian doesn't know about the Parvati curse. Emma does, and part of the curse is if they love each other, Parvati magic becomes warped. It becomes too powerful. They become almost gods themselves. They go crazy with power. They lose their minds. They kill everyone they love and then eventually kill themselves. That's the track that we're on. Okay? So they're walking home to the cottage. Emma is not speaking to Julian. And Julian is sort of like, I went too hard on the piskies. That was out of line. I know. So he's kind of like, Emma, talk to me, man. Like, what's going on? And instead of her being like, you were really mean to those little fairies, she just says in a cold voice, you still love me. Julian is like, pardon? She said, I thought you didn't love me anymore. But Julian, why did we just melt stone? She's freaking out because the curse is getting worse, right? And Julian is not understanding anything. He's like, Emma, what are you talking about? Emma is like, oh, you just don't get it. And Julian's like, yeah, Emma, I haven't been getting it. He's like, first you love me, then you want to be with Mark, now you want to be alone, now you're mad that I still love you. What is going on? And Emma interrupts him and she's like, well, I saw you kissing that fairy girl. Yeah, she did. Remember that fairy that tricked Julian? She's like, yeah, I saw you kissing a girl like 2 days ago. What was that about, bud? And Julian is like, oh, she looked like you. He's like, yes, I'm an idiot. Sorry, I fell for the fairy trick. But like, I thought I was kissing you, Emma. It's always fucking been you. Emma's like, oh. She stood there for a moment, stopped, mid-motion. Oh. Julian is like, yes, oh. You really think I'm gonna fall in love with someone else? I only dream about one thing. I want one thing. I obsess over one thing, Emma. Any guesses? It's you. And I thought you loved me too, he said, almost in a whisper. I don't know how I got that so wrong. Emma felt her heart crack, and she did the only thing she knew how. She ran straight out into the incoming storm. We are 75% of the way through. But what Emma is running out into isn't just any normal storm. It's the fairies, the same fairies that are bothering Livy, Ty, and Kit. They split up. The kids got half of them. Julian and Emma have the rest. And they start saying horrific things to Julian and Emma. They are like going into detail about the horrible things they're gonna do to Tavi, the 7-year-old. I mean, like really fucking awful things. Julian and Emma snap into the dream team. Again, they're like, oh, were we fighting 2 seconds ago? Wrong. You come after Tavi, there will be blood. So what follows is a battle. Even though these riders of Manon are apparently like the baddest of the baddies of fairy, Julian and Emma hold their own. And even more than that, Emma with the Cortana, which again is this magical, mythical sword, okay, kills one of the fae. The fairies immediately are like, what the fuck? And fly off, cut their losses. But now that blood has been drawn officially, things are about to get so much worse. What about the kids? The kids, to be fair, are also holding their own. They're just kind of fighting psychotically. They're literally stabbing everything that moves. And just when it seems like the fae are about to overtake them and whisk them off to who knows where, another fairy pops out of the sky on a flying horse.
Girls just wanna dance.
And it's our boy Gwen, okay? But not just Gwen, because clinging to his waist on the back of the horse was Diana. Her dark hair, a mass of curls, pulling free from their restraints. She has come for her kids. Gwen basically looks at the riders and he's like, yeah, you guys can fuck off. And they listen to him partially because Gwen is like an intimidating, cool guy, but also because they just got word that one of the other riders got killed. That doesn't seem possible. So we're gonna go check that out and you will be hearing from us soon. But before they go away, one of them turns to Kit and he says, I know your face, and then disappears. That's never good. It's always the fucking Herondales. All right. So the kids are safe. Julian and Emma, are they okay? Depends on who you ask. Julian is like dragging Emma into the kitchen. She got a little bit busted up. So he's trying to help her. And Emma's kind of pissed off because she killed that Fae because she thought that they were going to kill Julian. He was like about to stab Julian. And what she didn't know is that Julian had like a hidden weapon ready to defend himself. He was like faking looking helpless. And Emma always can tell what Julian's up to. I mean, when it comes to fighting, they are always so in tune and aware of each other. So she's kind of shaken that she not only killed a fairy, but that she wasn't with it, you know, wasn't on the same wavelength as Julian. And she says, I tried so hard. And Julian is like, no, you're fine. You couldn't have known that I had that thing hidden. Like, we're still a great team. And Emma is like, no. I'm switching subjects. Keep up. She says, I tried so hard to get you to stop loving me. And Julian's like, oh, we're here again. Great. And he thinks that Emma is like disgusted by him, that he loves her. Apparently the Mark thing was very convincing. So he's like, well, I'm sorry, but I can't do shit about it, Emma. It's always going to be you. He's like, if that's weird for you, every time you get a new boyfriend, you know that I'm still going to be loving you. I'm sorry. And Emma is like, no, oh my God, you idiot. She's like, that whole big speech you just gave me about how there's only one thing you think about. Yeah, babe, me too. And it's you. Only you. Julian Blackthorn. He is dead silent. It almost looks like his heart has stopped beating. And Emma's like, Jules, say something. You're freaking me out. And Julian stands them both up and like backs her into the wall. And he is like, only call me Julian from now on. Because apparently like she always calls him Jules as a friend, but you know, the summer I turned pretty motif. He came back from England all beautiful and she's like, oh my God, I love him. She calls him Julian when she's thinking of him in a less than friendly way. So he requests that he only be Julian because they are not friends anymore. Because then his mouth came down on hers and her heart seemed to stop and start again. An engine revved to an impossibly high gear. The world was gone and there was only Julian. And just to traumatize me, they are in wet denim again.
Stop it. Get some help.
First, we had the beach in LA. Now they are soaked to the bone because of British rain, and they are wiggling out of their clothes. I don't know why wet denim bothers me as much as it does, but here we are, okay? As they are stumbling their way to the bedroom, Emma is like trying to explain. She's like, I need this all out in the open now. She's like, I never loved Mark. I never liked Cameron. She's like, so we did this whole fake dating thing, blah, blah, blah. And Julian is like, please. I don't want to hear any logic right now. And Emma says, it can't last. It'll break our hearts. He caught her by her wrist and brought her hand to his bare chest, splayed her fingers over his heart. It beat against her palm like a fist punching its way through his sternum. Oh, emo boy, he says, break my heart. Break it into pieces. I give you permission. Ooh, and what follows is desperate, world-ending, and Emma wondered if there would ever be a time when it wouldn't feel this way. Yeah, so I think they fought their feelings for, check the calendar, I think 3 weeks they made it. I don't know what it is about them and wet clothes, but uh-oh, Uh-oh. Back at the Institute, we're doing a head count. We have found Tavi. We've got the kids back. Where is Drew? Drew, who has been missing for like 60% of this book, she's been hiding this entire time in her room with Jaime. And finally, she like creeps out and is like, Tina, first of all, I'm here. I'm alive. Thanks for wondering. But also, I need you. I need you to come with me. And Tina is like, girl, I'm so sorry, but can this wait? And Drew is like, no, I have been ignored for this entire series. Can you do this one thing for me, Tina? This one thing. And so Tina is like, oh, yeah, sorry, Drew. Let's go. Drew brings her to her room, opens the door, and Tina doesn't even realize that she's running across the room until she is like in Jaime's arms, gives him the biggest hug because she hates him, but God, she's missed him. This was her best friend, close enough that they were going to become Parvati. And she's been so worried that no one has heard from him in like a year. So Jaime has got news. Basically, Diego's whole relationship with Zara totally arranged for an odd reason. So Christina, Diego, and Jaime all share the same last name. They are of the Rosales family, but like distantly related. Totally like different brands of Rosales. But they do have a connection with the Fae. The Fae and Rosales families go hand in hand. So apparently the Dearborns know that the Rosales family has some kind of Fae instrument, Fae object that only a Rosales can use. Nobody really is certain what this heirloom does, but rumor has it can get you into fairy without being detected. You can move around the realm with no detection, and the Dearborns want it. So they're like, how do we become a Rosales? Marriage. All right, so Zara wants to become Zara Rosales. There we go. Why has Diego said okay to this? Unclear as of right now, but the plan is he'll pretend that he is getting engaged to Zara, and Jaime, because Jaime already has a shitty reputation, he's gonna run off with the heirloom. And Diego's gonna be like, oh no, can't find it, that my darn brother. We'll keep looking, and we will keep looking for it for like the rest of our lives, hopefully, because we're pretty damn sure that the Dearborns want this so that they can start a war with Fairy, which nobody wants. Also, he is here to deliver a letter from Diego because Diego can't send any mail because Zara screens it all. There we go. He gives Tina the letter and he kind of vanishes into the night. He's like, talk later, and leaves. Okay. And now back with Emma and Julian, before anyone panics, before I panic, they are in dry clothes. Mostly they're in no clothes at all. Okay. They are cuddled up in bed. And Julian is like, you know, I told you to shut up earlier. I didn't want to hear any logic. I'm ready now. I can hear the logic. So Emma explains everything from the fake dating plan that she came up with, but also the curse. She tells him about it. And Julian is like, ooh, that's a big deal. Why didn't you tell me? He basically is like, your plan has been real stupid because you could never make me hate you. And now we've wasted all this fucking time. He says, we know that we can never do anything to change how we feel about each other. So we just have to find a different way. He calls her an idiot, but he says it as he's giving her a forehead kiss. So I feel like it balances out. But we know that Julian has a bucket full of secrets himself. So he's one to talk, and he tells Emma about the Seelie Queen's offer, about how if they get this whole thing done, part of the deal is she will help him break the Parvati curse, or the Parvati bond, excuse me. Again, Emma is like, you could have shared that with the class too, bud. All right, glass houses. And also, you might not like the consequences of this action. And Emma's like, you've got a weird look on your face, Julian. Spill. Because what we didn't learn, but Julian did, the Seelie Queen apparently told him that the spell that would break the bond, it would actually break every Parvati bond in the world. So Jason, Alec, Clarion, Simon, every Parvati bond. And Emma is like, are you fucking kidding me? We can't do that. And remember, Julian is the kind of person who would burn the world down for his small circle of people he loves. He's like, respectfully, Jason, Alec, I could give less of a fuck. He's like, Clarion, Simon, love them. I love you more. He is a one-track mind to the point where it scares Emma.
I know, but he's so cute.
right? Emma is like, this is a boy who low-key has no empathy for others. And I'm terrified by that. So that is a terrifying bridge we are going to cross later. And we can't really get to the bottom of it because Magnus storms into their bedroom because he has been trying to contact them because Livy, Ty, and Kit almost died, right? So he just storms in and he is like, why aren't you answering your fuck? Why are you naked and entangled in the sheets? Apparently, for a moment, Magnus is speechless, and Magnus is never speechless. So finally, he's just like, okay, get your shit. We gotta go. And at some point, as they're traveling back to London, Magnus is like, yeah, hey girl, just so you know, it should have been impossible for you to kill that Fae. So something's going on. I don't care if you use the Cortana. We are in deep shit. Oh, excuse me. Historically unprecedented big shit is what he says. Oh no. And so now we're back at the Institute, the safest place to be, right? Nothing can harm us while we're inside these walls. Yeah. Tell that to Drew because she is kind of looking around her room. She's all alone on her own. Jaime left her like cute little stowaway, but he left a bag under her bed and she's kind of looking through it. To be fair, it was kind of open and things were spilling out, all right? She wasn't rummaging, she wasn't snooping. She's kind of looking around. It had like normal things in it. But then she finds what she thought was a witch light. You know, they have like, shadowhunters have like a little rock that glows. And so she picks it up to put it back in the bag. And then she feels the world tilt. It's kind of a similar sensation to stepping into a portal. And she like falls down, stands back up and realizes, I'm in a cave. She is in this weird tunnel. All right. There's like vines and stuff growing out of the walls. And this girl was just chilling in her room. Okay. She's got jeans and a t-shirt. I don't even think she has shoes on. She doesn't have weapons. No one knows where she is. She stands there for a little bit looking around. And she's just like, well, girl's gotta move. She's like, I'm not gonna do anything standing here. So she starts walking and eventually she starts to see a bit of light. At this point, she's actually laughing. She's like looking down at herself and she's just like, what the fuck? She was like, I wanted adventure. I wanted something to happen. Like I was bored to tears at the Institute, but damn, what is this? When she finally stumbles upon a room that looks like a Shadowhunter weapons room, like similar. So she's like, okay, this looks normal. When she hears a voice go, how did you get in here? Okay, hi. Drew turns to see a boy around her age. His hair is white blonde, cut short. A pale band of metal encircling his brow. And Drew is like, I just want to leave. So could you point me the way out? And the boy is like, you smell like a shadowhunter. And Drew is like, okay, and who are you other than rude? Remember, these are like 13-year-olds. She's like, who are you, Mr. Mean Guy? And he actually kind of laughs at that. He's like, good one. Sorry, I'm Ash. Did my mom send you? And for some reason, he sounds kind of hopeful. And Drew is like, no, But then she hears someone calling her name and the walls of the room start to kind of melt and shimmer and she's blasted back into her room. And Mark is knocking on her door being like, Drew, come on, get out here. Julian and Emma are back. So that's weird. And Drew doesn't even get a chance to tell anybody because the next plan is they're going to be sending Drew and Tavi to Idris to live with Diana. They're basically like, LA wasn't safe. London doesn't seem safe. We're taking you to the Shadowhunter world. So pack up your shit, Drew. And speaking of Diana, apparently Gwen got like the teeniest, tiniest scrape during the whole like Ty, Kit, Livy rescue. So she's patching him up and Gwen is like, I'm a big fairy man, like I don't need your help. And Diana says, shut up. She says, we all have wounds that are sometimes better cared for by someone else. And Gwen asks, and what of your wounds? Diana's like, I wasn't injured, unlike you. And Gwen is like, girl, you know that's not what I mean. You've got secrets upon secrets, walls upon walls. He asks her like, why aren't you head of the Institute? You know, you're such a good leader. He says, why do you hold yourself back from so many people? I would like to know your heart, he says. And for some reason, Diana trusts him. Like, they've been spending enough time together that she really understands. He sees the core of her. She really believes that. So she tells him the story of her life that most people are not privy to. She's basically like, I would love to be in charge of the LA Institute and protect these kids and take this weight off of Julian's back. But when they swear you in as leader of an institute, they make you hold the mortal sword and they ask you questions, etc. And even if they were to ask her the most banal question, she would expose a past that would exile her from the Shadowhunter world as she knows it. So what is that past? Diana tells Gwen that Diana isn't her birth name. She was born David Rayburn. She says, I'm a woman, I always have been, and my parents weren't unkind, but they didn't know the options. In public, I remained David. I withdrew from life. Every moment I was anxious and uncomfortable, and I feared I would never be happy. But then I turned 18. And that is when shadowhunters are able to study abroad. They're encouraged to study abroad. So she went with her sister, Arya, to Thailand. And Arya has always been supportive of Diana. So when they got to Thailand, Arya encouraged Diana to live as Diana. She dressed as herself. Arya introduced Diana as her sister, etc. But one day, they went on a mission and Arya was killed. Diana was also almost killed, but luckily that warlock I keep mentioning, Katerina, who is a nurse usually, Katerina saved Diana's life. And while she was healing her, she saw Diana's body, understood immediately what was going on. And once Diana woke up, Katerina literally had to explain what being trans was. To Diana, because remember, shadowhunters don't even fucking know what depression is. These anti-vaxxers, anti-science fools. So Katerina is like, I can help you transition. This is super normal. It's weird that your culture doesn't know about it. Honestly, you're not the weird one here. And sure enough, Katerina helps her over the few years that she's living in Thailand. But this transition includes using some mundane medicine, some mundane doctors, etc. So when she tells her parents, who again are not unkind, they're just ignorant, they basically tell her like, listen, we love you, but you have used mundane doctors, which is against our way of life. You are not welcome. Like, you can't come back. And before Diana can even come back and kind of like explain things to the clave, her parents go ahead and tell the world that David is the one who died while in Thailand. So they had like a full funeral for Diana, and Diana is like, damn, okay. And so she kind of just thought, I'm going to live in the mundane world for the rest of my life. So she just kind of continued to live in Thailand. She kept up her friendship with Katerina. This is also how Malcolm gets involved, how Malcolm alluded to the fact that he knew about Diana's past. Malcolm would often help supply her with hormones and things that she needed. As far as how Julian found out, Julian's just a freak. Love ya, but he takes things too far, okay? But how did she get to be back in the Shadowhunter world? Because, unfortunately, both of her parents died in a mission. They were killed by demons. And then the war broke out. And Diana was like, I need to help. I need to go fight. I am a Shadowhunter. So when she arrived in Idris, in the chaos of war, she introduced herself as Diana Rayburn, and everyone was like, sick, great, grab a sword. And she pretty much seamlessly re-entered into the Shadowhunter world. Nobody really questioned it. So that is how she is here today. Okay, but if the clave were to find out about this, again, because of her use of mundane medicines, etc., she would be exiled and the kids would have no one on their side, right? So she can't risk touching the mortal sword, being put in any kind of leadership position, etc. And after she finishes her story, Gwen says, I knew when I saw you on those stairs of the Institute and I saw that fire in your eyes. I knew you were the bravest woman ever to set foot on this earth. I regret only that such a fearless soul was ever hurt by the ignorance and fear of others. And then he asks, may I hold you? And Diana collapses into his warm embrace. Gwen for president. Why aren't we talking about that? We hate the Seelie Queen. We hate the Unseelie King. Give the crown to Gwen. Gwen and Diana ruling Shadowhunter and Fae in peace and harmony? Ugh. But no, that would be too easy. And now we're just in the tender, tear-jerking part of the book. Okay, so we finally get Diana feeling safe enough to share her story, and she is so accepted and loved. So now we turn to Julian. Him and Emma have just portaled back to the Institute, and he immediately pulls Mark aside. He's basically like, listen, Emma told me everything. I know you weren't really dating her, and I know that you did it for me, and just like, she told me how pissed off you were. I just want you to know that I'm really grateful. And Mark was like, it was never my idea. It was Emma. And Julian is like, oh, trust me, I know. Yeah, she's insane. But I appreciate you that you would do something like that for me. And also, thank you for taking care of the kids. Look, everybody's home. We're all good. And Mark is like, did you get updated on everything that happened? Like, we almost lost them. And Julian is like, you know what, man? You loved them and you kept them alive. And sometimes that is all you can do. He pulled his brother towards him into a hard hug. Mark made a muffled noise of surprise before his own arms went around Julian. And before they could say anything else, Livy throws herself at them, joining the group hug, and the family is back together. And remember, Drew and Tavi are going to go with Diana to be safe. And when that comes up during dinner, Drew puts her foot down. Remember, she has been doing nothing but babysitting Tavi this whole book. And so she's like, actually, guys, let's rewind here. Julian was younger than me when he was fighting in the war. They were 12 when the war happened, okay? She was like, I understand putting Tavi away under lock and key to be safe, but me? Why am I being so ignored? She says, you make me feel like I'm not part of this family. And that made Julian stop dead. And he doesn't even argue. He's like, oh my God, Drew, I'm so sorry. Like, if you want to stay, just say it and you'll stay. I would never want you to think that you're not part of this family. Drew immediately throws herself into her older brother's arms. And Julian was like too surprised to move. He's holding his baby sister and he's flooded with the memories of baby Drew sleeping in his arms, taking her first toddling steps, laughing as Emma held her over the water at the beach. He says, you're the heart of this family, baby girl, he said in a voice that only his brothers and sisters ever heard. I promise you, you're our heart. So yeah, if nothing else, just know the Blackthorns love each other fiercely. I feel like Julian is slowly learning that he's allowed to let them love him too, and he can be kinder to them. So we are a united front for like the first time in this entire book. But before we head to Idris, we have to talk about this one thing. There's this one thread that we can't really understand because they've caught each other up on the memories that Ty and Livy found, the diaries that Julian and Emma found. And it seems like the whole reason that Malcolm and Annabelle got caught and were put on trial is because they stole the black book. And it seems like the reason they did that, like why steal a book? An old, creepy, apparently evil spell book, right? Apparently someone told them that if they did that as a favor, that someone could offer them protection. Because remember, downworlders and shadowhunters cannot be together. So if they wanted to be in love and live together in safety, this person was like, get me the black book, I'll get you your peace and happiness. You're happily ever after. All right? So who could this be? And Kieran has an idea. He thinks that it all comes back to the Unseelie King. Because remember, the Unseelie King is the one who told Malcolm, hey, you could bring Annabelle back if you use the black, you know? He's just always at the scene of the crime, right? Why does Kieran think that it started with the Unseelie King? Because when Tina was like following him through the park and eavesdropped when he was talking to his brother Adeon, if we remember this, Adeon mentioned something about the legend of the first heir. And remember, the Unseelie King has 50 sons. They're hard to keep track of. But apparently, the very first son of the Unseelie King, the first heir, went missing. He was stolen about 200 years ago, which happens to be right when Malcolm and Annabelle stole the black book. And sorry, the heir was kidnapped and murdered. Okay, so Kieran is thinking that the Unseelie King asked them to get the black book for him so that he could do the bringing back to life spell on his own son. Okay, so he's kind of like, this has my father written all over it. It has been 2 centuries of the Unseelie King trying to get his hands on this black book, and nothing good can possibly come from that. So that's what we're working with as we move forward. As we're all getting ready to go to Idris, Emma meets up with Tina, just being like, hey girl, What's happened to you? A lot has happened to me. So Tina fills her in on this like very strange Mark, Kieran, Tina dynamic. And Emma is so excited. She calls it sexy weirdness. She is like, Tina, you are bringing me so much life in this dark time. Emma's like, this is amazing, but this could go either way. You're either heading for a hot fairy threesome or some kind of war. Really hope it's the former. But I'm so excited to live vicariously through you. But before they can get into all of the details, Kieran knocks on the door. He needs to talk to Tina. And before Emma leaves, she gets real up in Kieran's face and is like, if you hurt Tina, I don't need to finish that sentence. She walks out. Kieran needs help summoning a Daeon. He wants to talk to his brother about what he's learned, and he wants to do this kind of mind connection that fairies can do. But because it's like mind walking, he will have to kind of leave his physical body, and he doesn't feel good about doing that without some supervision. So he's basically like, Tina, if you could just be with me and hold my hand, I'd really appreciate it. Like, I feel safest with you. This should be really quick. Just making a little phone call. And so Tina is like, of course, I've got you. And honestly, she is like, oh, a cool fairy ritual that I haven't seen? Count me in. I want to see it. So she takes hold of his hand. He lays on her bed and he begins to make the mind connection. The world immediately melts around them and they're cloaked with darkness momentarily. As the darkness lightened, Christina saw a figure grinning before her. It was a grin of bones, lopsided, looking down at Kieran. They hadn't summoned his brother. They had summoned the Unseelie King. Apparently the Unseelie King has been waiting for this moment. My stupid son is going to try and contact Fairy and I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. All right. Luckily for everybody, because of the binding spell, Mark is in the room in a millisecond. He can tell that something is going on with Tina. He's there. Okay. And that is when he sees basically like a giant projection of the Unseelie King in Tina's room, just like floating over Kieran. So yikes. The Unseelie King is like laughing. He's like, you idiot boy. And Kieran is like, okay, sticks and stones, Dad. Like, you're just a projection. What are you gonna do? You can't hurt me. And the Unseelie King is like, yeah, you're right, son. Sticks and stones. Can't hurt you from here. But Mark sure did, because remember, we haven't had that very crucial conversation of everything that Kieran did and how Mark broke up with Kieran and basically said, you are my sworn enemy and I disown you and never want to see you again and you're a horrible person, etc. Yeah, the Unseelie King basically snaps his fingers and gives Kieran his memories back. Kieran gasps. He reels back as if he has been slapped. His hair fell over his eyes, changing from blue to black to white. He raises his head slowly. He just says, I remember. And the Unseelie King is like, see, they lied to you. They're using you. This is just typical Shadowhunter bullshit. Come home, boy. Like, be loyal to the Fae. And remember, this is what Mark has struggled with this whole book, is like, even if people are lying for maybe a good reason, maybe so that you don't get hurt, you omit some truths so that you spare people some pain. That's not how fairies work. Fairies don't lie. So Kieran is really hurt by this. He feels like a fool, and he feels especially foolish because he knows that Tina knows. So the two people that he trusts the most, and especially Tina being like this innocent, kind, wonderful person, the fact that they were hiding something from him for this long fucks him up. So Mark is trying to explain, but Kieran is just having a mental breakdown. Mark manages to like break the connection and the Unseelie King is whooshed away to wherever. But Kieran is essentially like, I am done with human explanations. And he slams his way out of the room. So remember when I said everybody's on the same team and it's really great? Just know every time I say that, what's going to happen on the next page. The only relationship that is not crashing and burning in this book is having a cute moment in the infirmary, because I didn't mention this, but when Livy, Ty, and Kit were dealing with the riders and that one fairy came up to Kit and was like, I know your face, Kit fainted after that. So he's up in the infirmary getting looked at. Magnus is sort of like, I think you got a concussion. I just want you to be like rested, okay? And Ty is obviously keeping watch. All right. So we end up having this conversation. Ty is basically like, I feel like I'm a little bit overprotected. I feel like people walk on eggshells around me. He's like, I saw you and Livy talking outside of the shop. And by talking, he's like, I saw Livy screaming at you. And I think I know why. And he's basically like, I'm just really frustrated that, you know, I'm 15, I'm intelligent, I have proven myself, but he feels like people still think that he can't be alone and like take care of himself. And that's why he really wants to go to the Scholomance. That's always been his dream, is he's going to go be a scholar at the Scholomance and live by himself and really make a name for himself. And Kit is like, I get what you're saying, but in terms of going away to the Scholomance, I don't think people don't want you to go just because they don't believe in you. I think for a lot of it, it's because they'll miss you. And Ty is like, yeah, Livy will miss me. And Kit is like, no, your whole family will miss you. I'll miss you. It was a bit like stepping off of a cliff. Far scarier than any con Kit had ever run for his dad. Ty looked up in surprise, blushing. You would? Kit is like, yeah, I mean, I don't want you to go, but I don't want to stop you. I don't want to stop you from doing something you'd really like. And he starts rambling, and Ty is like, oh, no, never mind. No, the Scholomance, dumb idea. Actually, we just met the Centurions and they're assholes. So, no, that idea, out the window. And Kit just bursts out laughing, like the switch up. Ty is like, my whole life, my only dream. And then Kit is like, maybe I don't want you to go. And Ty is like, I never wanted to go in the first place. What are we talking about? So Kit has like tears in his eyes. He's laughing so hard. And at first Ty looks confused, and then he kind of realizes the situation and he starts laughing too. They are doubled over in laughter in the infirmary. Who else do we need to check up on? Julian needs to talk to Magnus, because Magnus, remember, walked in on Emma and Julian, put those pieces together and was like, oh no. Okay. Yeah, let's have a chat, because Julian has gotten all of his Parabatai curse information secondhand. Emma has told it to him. So maybe Magnus has some more stuff. And sure enough, he does. Julian is like, listen, I know about the curse. I've tried everything. He was like, even before the curse, I was looking up spells for how to fall out of love. I've done it all, and I don't know what to do. And Magnus is like, yeah. He says, look up the story of Silas Pangborn and Eloisa Ravenscar. Like, you aren't the first. You won't be the last. Usually the Silent Brothers find a way to keep it quiet, But this is real shit. He's like, you will lose your mind, and your family will come running to help you, and you will literally rip their hearts out of their chest. And Julian's like, no, man, look at me. You know me. Like, my family is the only thing that I care about. And Magnus is like, at that point, you will not be you. You will lose your mind, and you will kill everyone you love. Magnus is like, but you have a choice, He says, you can choose exile. You'll be stripped of your magic, but you won't kill your family. And Julian is like, I'll be separated from the only people I love. Like, I'll never see my family again. And Magnus is like, well, there's one other option, but you're not gonna like it. And Julian's like, put me in, coach. What is it? When you get to Alicante, tell the Inquisitor everything. So while Magnus is giving Julian this kind of tragic history lesson, he has also been brewing the potion to get rid of the binding spell. I will say he tells Mark and Christina to come wait in the library while he gets the potion. And that binding spell, man, woo, it's strong. Because Mark and Tina are next to each other and cannot keep their hands off each other. We have a very hot and heavy moment. And Magnus is just like, ugh, teenagers, I cannot take this. Take this, please. Here's your medicine. You guys need to be separated for a little bit for it to take hold. So scatter. All right. Mark leaves. He's going to go try and find Kieran and talk to him. And Tina is like, Magnus, can I give you a letter? Can you send it? She's basically like, I don't trust traditional post. I trust you. And he's like, yeah, sure. I'm doing all of these weird tasks. Add another one to the list, Tina. She scribbles a message, folds it, and hands it to Magnus. He gives a long whistle when he sees the name of the recipient across the top. He's like, whew. You sure? She nodded with a resolution she didn't feel. Absolutely. And now cutting back to Julian, he walks into Emma's room. She is in her PJs on her bed, eating a pastry, getting crumbs everywhere. An overwhelming feeling of love hit him like a punch to the chest. And he shares Magnus's grand plan. So, stick with me here. Magnus wants Julian and Emma to talk to the Inquisitor. Who is the Inquisitor but Robert Lightwood? Because every other Parabatai couple that have run into this issue, they have tried to hide or run away or fake it, whatever, but no one has tried to ask the Clave for help. And Magnus is like, I don't know, man, maybe admitting to your quote unquote crime beforehand and asking for help, maybe they could, And also, Robert Lightwood, remember, was in Valentine's inner circle. And so when he came back to the bright side, the light side, as punishment, he was exiled for a while. And while he was exiled, that suspended his parabatai bond. Something about the magic of exiling separated him from his parabatai. And so if you go talk to him, maybe he will agree to exile one of you and you stay away from each other long enough that the parabatai bond breaks. And just in case, in the meantime, Magnus will be researching ferociously to try and find a way around this, okay? And Emma is like, well, it's gonna be me. She's like, I'm not separating you from your kids. And besides, I was gonna go travel the world with Tina anyway. I was gonna go to Mexico. So we could make this work. What's a year? You know, better than never, right? But what happens if the Inquisitor doesn't go for that? Well, Julian is like, I could always threaten him to get rid of every parabatai bond ever, which is what would happen if they do the thing the Seelie Queen is offering. And Emma is like, Julian, the fuck? Like, remember, Alec and Jace, Clary and Simon, so many people that we love. I thought we totally benched that plan. Emma is shocked to hear Julian even suggest it. She's like, that is an unforgivable sin. I know that we say we'd do anything for our family, but there is a line we won't cross, right? Julian is like, yeah. I just meant we would use it as leverage. We'd never actually do it. I would just be bluffing. I'd never do something like that. Julian. For some reason, Christina finds Kieran first. I don't know where Mark went. She finds Kieran first and they need to have a little talk. Kieran's also having a bit of a mental breakdown and Christina's trying to explain to him that Mark and her weren't lying to him for the sake of the clave, for the sake of the shadowhunters. They were hiding this from him for Mark's family. Because the part of Kieran being like the liaison and all of this stuff is he is supposed to give like a testimony to the clave about what's going on in the Unseelie court, right? So we need him to still be loyal to the Shadowhunters enough to do this testimony. And, you know, hopefully that will not only clear up all of this stuff about Zara, but also maybe even getting Helen back. Like there's a lot that the Blackthorns are hoping will come out of this entire deal. And it's really hinging on Kieran staying on their side. They need a Fae on their side. And Gwen unfortunately doesn't count because he's like a free agent. Okay, so they're talking about this, they're talking about love, they're talking about how love can morph and change and go through so many different iterations. You know, she kind of shares her story with Diego and things like that. And Kieran shakes his head. He's like, you know what? When I swore fealty to you, I did it because I kind of wanted to annoy Mark. But now I'm thinking that was maybe the best decision I've ever made. And Tina's like, oh, but you know that I'd never hold you to that, right? Like I would never order you to do anything. You're free to make your own decisions. And Kieran is like, I know. That's the point. Like I've never met someone so patient and kind and open-minded, especially because at any point you could have taken Mark from me. He's like, I know what he feels for you. And Tina's like, no, I would never have taken Mark from you because neither of us, Tina or Kieran, neither of us would want Mark's love if it wasn't given freely. And as if summoned, Mark finally joins us. Where did he go? I don't know, okay? But he comes in and he and Kieran need to talk. Tina excuses herself because remember, they just took that binding spell medicine, so they need to be separated. So she's like, bye. Mark and Kieran, let's talk. And he kind of reiterates like, listen, I'm so sorry I did this. I promise I was going to tell you after the hearing and after your testimony, but I was just so scared that we would lose you. But he does say that when he went into Fairy to rescue Kieran, he didn't necessarily do it for love. He's like, I still have really complicated feelings with you, Kieran. Like, I think it's love, but it's not an easy one. And Kieran says, not like the kind you feel for Christina. And Mark says, no. Not how I feel with Christina. He says, I don't love you as I love Christina. I love you as you. And I wish you could see my heart. And I wish you could believe me. And Kieran is like, I believe you. Not because of you, but because I know Tina wouldn't go along with a dishonorable plan. He's like, I believe you that you were gonna tell me eventually. I just wish you told me from the get. And Kieran's like, I get it. I'll go through with the testimony and then we'll never have to see each other again. And Mark is like, wait, that's not what I want. Never finishing a damn conversation, these two, because those riders of Manon, yeah, They're at the gates. Everyone gathers at the library to figure out what to do. Magnus is not going to be helping us because his power is drained. He has been drawing portal after portal. He was healing Livy. He was healing Kit. All of this stuff. He doesn't really have the juice to be helping us right now. So they're kind of like, we're safe in the Institute for a little bit. Let's just stay here and come up with a plan. Magnus, in the meantime, is really applauding them. He's like, damn, I thought that Clary and Jace were the ones coming up with the best self-destructive plans, but you guys killing a rider of Manan? Incredible. So they're planning to just kind of wait it out, surrounded by their weapons, when the 5 riders come closer, and Emma sees one of them is holding a little girl with a knife to her throat. And Emma is like, oh, we're not waiting. Okay. Nobody else wants to come with her. Everyone is like, Emma, don't do it. Don't do it, Emma. Before anyone can stop her, she has her Cortana. She runs out the front door, turns around, locks it, put a couple of extra locking runes on it. She heard the dull thumps of bodies striking the other side. A voice is calling out to her, don't be reckless, open the door. But she just turned and descended the steps alone. She's like, I killed one of these fuckers. I'll do it again. Okay. And she doesn't want anyone else to get hurt. So they are locked in the Institute, fighting their way out as Emma descends 1 versus 5 to meet the riders. And we have 60 pages left. Immediately, the Fae are like, there she is, the girl that killed our brother. Let's get her. For some reason, Emma is like, let the girl go, and she does. I don't know who she was. She was just like a random girl that they picked up. It doesn't matter. We never hear from her again. She's gone. Okay. Emma can hear the Blackthorns trying to get out of the house, and she wants this done and over with before they get out here and possibly get hurt. So she just starts screaming at him like, yeah, I killed your brother and I'll do it again. She's like waving the Cortana. She's like, this is the sword that did it. Like, let's go. So they just start fighting. But Emma, for as amazing as a shadowhunter that she is, it's 6 against 1. There's like a 6th rider that shows up. Luckily for her, the Blackthorns get out of the house. First, of course, out the door is Julian, a blur of gear and sword and dark hair. And then Mark, Christina, Kieran, Ty, Livy, even Kit are out there with every weapon they've got. They're kind of holding their own. At one point, Emma does have to save Kit from being killed. Also, the fairy, like right before he's about to stab Kit, looks at him and is like, who are you? And remember, another fairy stopped and was like, I know your face. So Kit clearly has drama with the fairies that no one understands, including him. So just remember these moments, okay? And the fairy's kind of laughing at Emma. He's like, why don't you just stop fighting? You have already lost. Look around. And Kit like has a dagger. He's like, Emma, you look, I'll stab. And he like fights off the fairy. Emma looks around and the Fae isn't kidding. Tina is being thrown up against the wall. Mark is looking at her in horror, but he can't go help her because he has a sword about to plunge into his stomach. Ty and Livy are also have like daggers to their neck, etc. Not good. They are about to lose when the most unexpected person walks through the Institute gates. It's this very slight woman who's wearing clothes that don't really fit her that well. She has no weapons. She's just hugging a book to her chest.
Gossip Girl here, and I have the biggest news ever.
She's like, hi, Faye. So I happen to be longtime friends with the Unseelie King, and through this multi-century friendship, I have come to learn his real name. So if you don't want me to tell his real name to every Shadowhunter and Downworlder, you're gonna leave right now. And remember, in folklore, if you know a fairy's true name, you have control over them. So she's like, yeah, Malcolm and I know his real name. I bet he wouldn't be happy to hear that I gave you the option to save him and you just wanted to fight. So get the hell out. One of the fairies like charges at her and she just goes like, and the fairy like flies to the other side of the Institute and everyone is like, oh my God, Annabelle is so strong. But then a figure emerges behind her and he's like, sorry, that was me. Magnus, High Warlock of Brooklyn. Yeah, he was in the house recovering his strength. Drew is next to him. He's kind of leaning on her. He was like, yeah, I had enough strength to do that. And also this. And he like zaps all of the Fae weapons out of their hands and the Fae pretty much disappear. They're basically like, ugh, too much drama. we'll be back. They're like, this isn't over, and they disappear. Kit's first reaction is like, sick, free weapons, and he like goes and starts collecting the swords. But why is Annabelle here? Apparently, she received a letter and needs to talk to Julian Blackthorn. The meeting is just Julian and Annabelle. She just immediately hands over the letter, like without even speaking. She's just like, you need to read this. And honestly, this letter makes me tear up. I can't even read it without crying. Basically, Ty wrote her a letter. Remember, he found that portal that they used to communicate. So he just like threw a bunch of letters in there. He wrote a letter basically introducing Annabelle to the current Blackthorn family. He's like, I've got a twin sister named Livy. She's so smart. She's so cool. You know, Drew is this, Mark is this. And then there's Jules. I think you might like him best. He's the reason we're all okay and still together. I don't think he knows that, but we do. People say we're unlucky because we don't have parents, but I think they're unlucky because they don't have a brother like mine. And Julian literally has to stop. He can like feel tears welling in his eyes and he's just like, ooh. Ooh. But at the end of the letter, Ty is basically like, things are different now. It's been 200 years. Please let us prove to you that we've got your back. We're not like your shitty ass family and we'll protect you. We want you to get justice. If you testify in front of the clave, we'll stand next to you the whole time. You can be a shadow hunter again. You can live in Blackthorn Manor. You can have us. And Julian is like, how does that sound? Annabelle, you could tell the clave that you killed Malcolm and you would be seen as a hero. Like right now, Zara Dearborn is saying that she did it. And Annabelle is like, Zara, what? She's like, Dearborn, you say? Like the Inquisitor that tortured her and sent her away to the Iron Sisters, but really allowed her family to kill her? That Dearborn? She's like, oh, let's fucking go. I actually don't need any more information. I will testify. But she says, Julian Blackthorn, if I testify and they just say that I'm insane, will you stand up for me? And Julian says, and this is important, I think, Julian says, Magnus will be with you every step of the way. He will protect you. You can trust him, even if you don't trust me. And that wasn't a real answer. He didn't say, yes, I will stand up for you. Just mark that. But she took it for one. Julian had known she would, and they've got a deal. Everybody portals to Idris. They are in Alicante. The sun is shining. It feels like we are finally, like, we've got every piece of the puzzle, right? We've got the Black Book. We've got Annabelle. Everybody's working together. Emma's not feeling too good. Emma feels sick to her stomach because now that they're in Alicante, Julian and Emma have to go talk to Robert Lightwood, the Inquisitor, and tell him that they are Parbatai in love and they are screwed, basically. Help us, Robert Lightwood. They get right to it. They talk to him and his jaw is immediately on the floor. He is like, oh, no one has ever brought this to my desk before. Are you positive it's not like a crush, you know? And Julian and Emma are like, it is not a crush. Julian is like, we are absolutely sure. And they explain like, we've done everything we can think of to separate ourselves. You guys need to do it. Okay, we will submit to your exile. This is Magnus's plan. If you think that we're just teenagers coming up with a crazy plan, Magnus is the one who suggested this. I really think, like, based on your experience with exile, we think you should be able to figure this out. So Robert Lightwood is like, I do not get paid enough for this. Oh my God. And he's basically like, give me a couple days to figure this shit out, okay? And instead of feeling happy that they didn't get like thrown in prison and stripped of their runes, Julian and Emma can only feel empty inside as they say thank you and leave. So now people are aware of the issue. Robert knows the wheels are in motion, okay, for better or for worse. Now everything is about to get really chaotic really quickly, so just hang with me, folks, okay? The trial is starting. We are all gathering at the hall where we are going to hear testimony from the racists and from Annabelle and the Blackthorn family, okay? The Blackthorns are all there when we get two different people showing up. One we like, one we don't. First up, we got the Centurions and Zara. So we're with Tina and Mark, and Diego is there. He runs up to Tina and immediately is like whispering in her ear, like, I got your letter. Are you sure? Like, if that's what you want. But before we, the reader, can hear anymore or know what he's talking about, Zara comes up and is like, oh, Blackthorns. And Tina, she's like, aren't you so happy to see how well the Institute is running without you? And she's basically just being a shitty person. She is literally having her little Centurion people pass out pamphlets about how downworlders should be locked up and registered and blah, 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 blah. Okay? Tina is working real hard to not rip Zara's face off. But who is the person we want to see? Livy, Ty, and Kit are sitting kind of in the back. They're not really supposed to be here. And they're kind of making fun of Kit because this is Kit's first time in Idris. And remember, Kit's whole shtick is that he hates everything Shadowhunter. He is like, damn, this is a cool place. He is very excited. Like, everything looks magical to him. He pretty much never left his house in LA except to go to the shadow market. Okay, so he's seeing the big old world and he likes what he sees. And Livy thinks that's really funny. When Ty whispers to Livy, he's like, look, look. And Diana is walking up with two women next to her. And it is Helen Blackthorn and her wife, Aline, because Diana has been working with Gia to get Helen back, if for nothing else, just for this trial. Okay, so this is the first time Livy has seen her older sister in 5, if not 6 years at this point. She is ecstatic. So at least there's one person we're happy to see. Now, everyone is gathering in the hall, but in kind of a back room, we have Julian and Annabelle, and we also have Magnus. And remember, he was having a lot of trouble with his powers earlier, and he just portaled all of the Blackthorns to Idris. So he's like really, really drained when he drops the glass that he's holding. And then right after that, he himself like crumples to the ground. His head hits the stone floor with a sickening crack. And Gia immediately is like, Julian, you need to go get Alec right now. And sure enough, Alec shows up, and it turns out that Magnus has actually been having problems with his magic for a while now. And basically, he's not going to be able to help with the trial. Remember, Julian promised Annabelle that Magnus was going to be there with her every step of the way. He's unconscious. So, ruh-roh. And people listen to Magnus. Right? Now it's pretty much the teenage Blackthorns and Diana versus the world. Cool. The trial begins, and it honestly just, God, this was so frustrating to read. Gia essentially goes through everything that we know, right? All of Malcolm's crimes. She also updates everyone about what the Unseelie King is hoping to do, which is, if he gets the Black Book, he's hoping to take control of all of Fairy and weaken the Shadowhunter magic and then declare war. So Gia is basically like, if we let this happen, could Shadowhunters win a battle against Fairy without any of our magic? No runes, no magical weapons, just us? I don't think so. So we don't want this war. And of course, the Dearborns and the racists want this war because they want an excuse to demonize downworlders further, right? So of course they're like, oh, these are lies. Like, the Fae are just trying to trick us. They'd never do that, blah, blah, blah. And Julian is like, oh, you want to talk about lies, honey? Zara, why did you tell everybody that you killed Malcolm when I have his real killer right here? And Annabelle comes out. Nobody believes her. Surprise, surprise. They demand that she is tested by the mortal sword. But remember, Annabelle has a history of being tested by the mortal sword when she was tortured when they were looking for Malcolm. That's like part of why she went insane. So she doesn't want to do this. After a lot of pretty much sweet talking from Julian, she does it. She wants justice so bad, and she fucking hates the Dearborns. So she's just like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. Give me the sword. Annabelle is panting like a frightened rabbit, but Julian gave her an encouraging nod, and she reached out slowly towards the sword. A shudder went through her body as if she touched an electric fence. But when asked, did you kill Malcolm? And she says yes, proving that Zara is lying, it's still not good enough. For the racists, they're basically like,
oh, well, maybe the mortal sword doesn't work on undead people, blah, 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 blah.
They're grasping at straws. They're screaming at her. They're calling her a monster when someone throws a bottle from the crowd. Annabelle is having a breakdown. People start throwing things at her. Remember, her worst fear was that people weren't going to believe her. No one was going to stand up for her, and she was just going to be tortured by the evil Shadowhunters again. So she's just screaming. She's like, I want to leave. I want to get out of here. That's when Emma is reminded, suddenly and coldly, that the mortal sword is not just an instrument of justice. it's a weapon. Robert Lightwood runs up the steps to the stage to try and like comfort Annabelle. He's like, Annabelle, come on, like let's go to the back room. It'll be okay. When she blindly thrusts the blade between them, protecting herself, it pierced through Robert Lightwood's robes and sliced into his chest. Now, a lot of things are going to happen really quickly because we have 6 pages left. Okay, so take a deep breath. In we go. Chaos obviously erupts. Robert Lightwood is on the ground, on the dais, up in front of the hall. We see Diego run off to the infirmary where Magnus is, and Magnus is with Kieran. And basically what Tina's letter said is like, I know that this trial is going to be a shit show. You need to get Kieran to safety, because given any chance, the Dearborns and co are going to want some fairy blood spilled. So get Kieran out of here. Diego is going to take Kieran to the Scolamonts to hide. The only reason that he goes is basically Diego is like, listen, Mark and Christina aren't going to be able to focus on fighting if they don't know that you're safe. So you got to come with me and help them focus. So Diego, Kieran, out of here. Julian is trying to calm Annabelle down. He is like, come on, like, we'll go. It's okay. It's fine. But the chaos is just getting louder and louder. And Emma is looking across the hall and she sees something has snapped in Annabelle. Because remember, she's been like tortured. She's kind of like teetering on like slipping towards insanity. And Emma can see like she's gone. Like the sane part of Annabelle Blackthorne is not with us in the room. So all of the people who are up where like the trial was really being held weren't allowed to bring weapons. But luckily Emma always has her Cortana. So she runs up there to try to defend Julian. Emma is fighting her way up there. Livy is fighting her way up there. Alec has already made it up there and is looking down at his father, who has finally stopped breathing. And Emma just dives at Annabelle, who is like swinging the mortal sword around without a care in the world. Emma stabs with the Cortana and Annabelle jerks her sword arm back, her eyes almost feral. Someone is shouting for Julian. It's Livy. She's running up. She, you know, the girl's always stacked with swords. She's trying to get Julian a weapon to defend himself. Julian, of course, is like, Livy, get out of here. Meanwhile, Annabelle hits Emma with the mortal sword. The mortal sword and the Cortana hit with a massive echoing clang, and the mortal sword shattered. Annabelle is pissed. She is like shrieking. There's this weird black liquid flowing out of the mortal sword. Emma is on the ground because she feels like she has just been struck by lightning. Julian is trying to approach Annabelle. He's like, okay, look, I don't have a weapon. Your weapon is gone. Like, please just stop fighting. But Annabelle only gave a low growl and lunged. Her feet left the ground, and for a moment, she was truly beautiful, a shadow hunter in full flowering glory. Just before she landed lightly on the wood floor and drove her jagged, broken half blade into Livy's heart. Livy's eyes go wide as if she's surprised. She raises her hand to touch the hilt protruding from her chest. Her knees went out from under her, and she fell hard on the ground. Julian made a noise. It was a noise Emma couldn't have described. Not as human a sound as a howl or a scream. It sounded like it was ripped out from the inside of him. He is now bent down, just cradling Livy, and there is so much blood. He is drawing healing rune after healing rune after healing rune, and they keep fading because some wounds are too big even for a healing rune, especially when that person is already dead. Emma is filled with rage, levels no human has ever seen before, and she lunges for Annabelle, who seems to have like come to her senses. She realized what she has just done. She looks like, oh fuck. But Emma is like, I don't really care. All she's thinking is like, I hope Ty isn't watching. And she goes to stab Annabelle with the Cortana when conveniently there's a poof of smoke. She sees the shadow of the Unseelie King's insignia, the broken crown, and when the smoke fades, Annabelle is gone. Emma looks back at the hall, and it is just devastation. Livy is limp in Julian's arms, and her soul is no longer there. It had gone away to a far and untouchable place, even as Julian ran his hands over her hair again and again and begged her to wake up and look at him just one more time. High above the council hall, the golden clock began to chime the hour.